I had monitor. I had monitor only. Hello, everybody. Welcome. So sorry for that. Hello, Space Wizard. Hello. Yes, those bells are Frida. She's playing with a leftover bell. Hello, super cool boy lover. Yes, the chains. Can you hear the chains, everybody? Can you hear them? It is. It is an ASMR. I am very new to 3DO, but I would like to get better at it. Besides, you did pay for my ASMR setup, so thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Flopsy. I really appreciate it. Today, though, we are going to read some spooky Christmas stories from one of my favorite subreddits, r/no-sleep. I don't know about you guys, but one of my favorite Christmas stories, one of my favorite Christmas fairy tales is A Christmas Carol. And A Christmas Carol, to me, is also a little bit spooky, which is something I really enjoy. But for today, I'll be focusing on the ones that I find on the No Sleep Reddit. Please do let me know if the volume is okay for you guys. I've only read out my DSL stories. They are really funny, I'm not going to lie. Okay. I do think that people underestimate how scary Christmas can be. That's why I like A Nightmare Before Christmas and A Christmas Carol. It is like Christmas flavored horror. There's also a ton of movies that are about Christmas and that also dabble into the horror aspect of things. Which I find very interesting. Please do let me know if anything is incorrect somewhere. Because really enough, I cannot hear my... Really enough, I cannot hear. Did something happen here? Oh, I see why. Whoops. Whoopsies. Don't worry about that though. You just need to relax and rest. Now, on to our first story. Father Christmas by Shiny Happy Persons. Every year since I've been ready, I've got all the lights off and the chimney flue is closed. Not that it matters. He can still get in. I stay up until dawn with the heat off and the lights out, my shotgun cradled in my arms, a blanket draped over my legs. I used to tell people about it over the years. I would warn them, but they never listened. Sometimes they told me I was crazy. Sometimes they told me to get help. No one can help me. I want to live in the Nile, to pretend it's all fun and games, carols and eggnog, presents and a Christmas goose. God bless us, everyone. And I don't blame them. I was already too old to believe when we met face to face, but belief isn't required for truth. And the philosophers were right. The truth hurts. It's getting too hard to talk about as I grow older, with my shame propelling my anxiety to new heights. So I've learned to hide it, to let them forget or believe I have. I tell my friends I'm visiting family. I tell my family I have to work. I'll say anything to avoid traveling for the holidays or to have guests over. I've been marked, and if he finds me again, I intend on facing him alone. I stay home, and if I can't stay safe, I stay ready. I won't give him another chance. Some people say they understand. They give me sympathetic looks and they think I'm trying to rationalize trauma. But they weren't there. They don't know what he's really like, what he brings with him in that sack. They don't know just how long a night can be, how exactly a lump of gold can be used by a creatively disturbed mind. I do. I didn't believe it when I first saw him. I thought I was dreaming. I stayed up late for no reason all that year. I wasn't trying to find him or ask for anything. Like I said, I was way past believing in him. I just asked Mom directly for presents and was thankful for the few she could get. We didn't have much, but we had each other. The year we met, I tried to call out for her, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed with fear. Unable to move. I remember being happy. I used the toilet before we crossed paths, so at least I didn't wet my pants. That may have been my last happy thought. He's not very holly-jolly in person. He definitely doesn't look like his pictures. I was watching television in the living room, and the next thing I know, he was just there, standing behind me, still as the grave. The screen went dark when the show went to commercials, and that's when I saw him in the reflection. I tried to stand up, but I couldn't. I was so shocked to see him, and my legs just jutted straight out, and I stubbed my toe in the coffee table. The pain jolted me out of any delusion that this was a dream. I was awake. He was real. And he was there. He only said one word, a single declaration, a passing of judgment, and it was the way he said it, with the perverted pleasure of a deranged mind. that told me that it was pointless to plead. He saw me when I was sleeping. He knew when I was awake. And he knew when I was bad or good. He knew to call me naughty. He walked toward me as he unbuckled his belt. At that moment, I left my body behind, becoming a passive observer of the torments he inflicted. My tears were the only proof I was aware of his presence. By morning, he was gone, and found me hiding under the couch, shaking and borderline comatose. He spent Christmas in the hospital that year, and the medical bills nearly bankrupted us, so my presents were returned. I never got to open them. No birthday gifts next year either. We also couldn't afford therapy. I don't know if it would have helped. How do you bounce back from something like this? It's been years, but I know he's still out there. So I wait for him with my shotgun cradled in my arms. I see bourbon slowly through the night, and I listen for any sign that he's arrived. My shotgun has 2 barrels. My plan is simple enough. 1 barrel is for him, and if that doesn't stop him, the other barrel is for me. Either way, I will never let him touch me again. How do we feel about this first story, guys? I do wonder if any of the other stories have any of those mature labels that we've got. You know, I often wonder. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Honestly, the trope about Santa being that kind of person, I don't know when it started, but it does really feel very, very scary in a way, and very, very accurate to what someone would do if they broke inside someone's house. Though I have always been a very big fan of the Krampus stories. I think that Krampus is way better than the alternative. I just joined and I just see you in the dark. Yes, I'm your government appointed sleep paralysis demon. How do you feel about that? I think that I am a very good sleep paralysis demon. I can also do this. I am glad that you think so. I love being a sleep paralysis demon. I love watching you sleep. Don't worry about it. It's better if you don't pay attention to the noise. You know what happens? if you pay too much attention to it. Hello, Squadra. Congratulations on your Holly Coffee Bean. Thank you for the hydrate. Delicious coffee break. Should we continue on to the next story? This one is titled, Someone Has Been Leaving Presents Under My Christmas Tree. Spooky. Someone has been leaving presents under my Christmas tree. Let me just get this out of the way now. I'm a grown-ass man who has no friends or family within a 200-mile radius. No, it's not because of work or school. It's simply a conscious choice. I just don't like people. I'm sure my bitch of a wife and judgmental father can be blamed for that. I have anger issues myself, but at least I acknowledge my flaws. Call me a Scrooge, a Grinch, or a Grouch, and I don't give a damn, but you can't call me as crazy. I know what's been happening is real, and I feel utterly powerless to stop it. It started a week ago. I trudged like a zombie to my kitchen to start my day with a fresh cup of joe. As I yawned, taking my first sip, I noticed something in the living room. I jumped and cursed as I spilled hot coffee down my front. I threw my mug into the sink in frustration, ignoring the resounding crash as I bent low in self-defense, this straight face feebly. That was when I realized there wasn't a person in my house. It was a Christmas tree, or something that was supposed to look like a Christmas tree. The tree was half dead, the smell of rotting pines assaulting my nostrils. I nearly gagged, wondering how I hadn't noticed it before. I could see termites scurrying all over the damn thing. What the fuck? Malcolm. It had to have been Malcolm, my landlord. No one else had a key to my apartment, and I wouldn't put it past him to play a prank on me like this. Still, this was not funny. I planned to call him and give him a piece of my mind. First, though, I had to get rid of the tree. I spent nearly half an hour hauling the biggest thing out of my apartment and down the side of the road, cursing and covered in termites. I called Malcolm and left him a worthy voicemail. Then I went to work and forgot about the little prank until the next day. The tree was back in my apartment, and now it had been adorned in rusty, busted-out Christmas lights. The odor was not nearly as sour as my attitude as I called Malcolm again. I demanded he come to my apartment. When he got there, he acted as though he had no clue how the tree had gotten into my home. He asked if I had any friends or family that had come into town. Upset that he was playing dumb, I threatened to talk to his peers if this were to happen again. Malcolm once again assured me that this was not his doing, but he would change my locks and help me get the damn tree out of my dwelling. I could smell the tree as soon as I woke up the next morning, furious. I threw my bedroom door open and I stormed into the living room. The tree was back, busted lights, pentagram-shaped star and all. But now there was something under the tree as well. A box wrapped in blue wrapping paper. I had had enough. I called the cops. The cops took the gift, considering it as a suspicious package, and left an officer to watch over my apartment for the night. I got a call from work later that day from one of the officers on the station. The gift box had contained a human finger. They're gonna need me for questioning. This had gone from annoying to immediately concerning rather quickly. After spending hours at the police station, the officers advised me to find a hotel to stay at. I did, and guess what I woke up to see the next day? The same damn Christmas tree. There was another box underneath, this one decked in purple wrapping. I thought that I was losing my mind. In an anxiety-induced craze, I ripped open the gift rather than calling the cops again. There was a whole hand this time, though it was missing the ring finger. I didn't call the cops this time. I set the tree and the box ablaze after hauling them out to a secluded area. I sped back home and began grabbing my most important possessions. I told Malcolm that I was breaking my lease and there was nothing he could do to stop me. Then I set off on the road, driving for hours and hours before finally pulling over to at least get a nap. When I awoke, I found the new gift box beside me. Though I didn't want to open it, I could hear a woman's voice in my ear, urging me to do so. I tore the box open and nearly vomited. A whole arm had been crammed inside. I have been getting a new body part every day. I am confessing to you that I recognize them very well. I don't know if the police are after me, but I'd rather be caught by them if we are being honest. I don't think it will save me. I murdered my wife last Christmas, but I suppose she wants some company this year. Well, would you look at that? It was very nice of her to try and decorate, don't you think? I don't know why people are so scared of ghosts. After all, look at how nice we are being. She got a new Christmas tree. She decorated it. She prepared all of the gifts for the 12 days of Christmas. I do believe this is a very charming story. What do you guys think? Congratulations on your 25 stream streak! Congratulations! I hope that you enjoyed this one. I'm not religious, but maybe I should get a priest. Why? Aren't we having so much fun right now? You are having fun, aren't you? At the end of the day, we still have some more stories left. Not to mention that even though it isn't especially Christmas related, I do have a very specific stories that I would like to tell you guys. But that is a surprise for the end, once we're done with our very, very nice Christmas stories to get us into a more festive mood. Yes. Good. Oh, I wonder, do we have the ASMR redeem an ASMR menu enabled? Let me check. Let me check. ASMR request that is not enabled. I'm so sorry about that. But I do think that the ASMR menu command is enabled right now. Yes, it is. Feel free to do exclamation point ASMR if you need a reminder of what I do for ASMR triggers. I don't have that much stuff, but I hope you enjoy it nonetheless. Now, on to the next story. Every year, we have someone new for Christmas. My family's favorite Christmas tradition was always a little strange. Every year, we invite a complete stranger to our holiday dinner. Someone who was so alone for the holidays. It was my mother's one unbreakable rule. It was a beautiful act of charity, or so I thought. That was until this Christmas, and I finally learned what having someone for dinner really meant. For as long as I can remember, Christmas at my house was a Norman Rockwell painting come to life, just with one very peculiar brushstroke. The air hummed with pine needles and roasting turkey. The fireplace crackled, casting a warm glow on the walls. And the tree, always a little too big for the room, scraped the ceiling with branches heavy from a generation's worth of ornaments. My parents, my grandmother, my older brother, Michael, were a postcard of holiday perfection, and right at the center of it was our guest. The tradition was older than I was. My grandmother, Anna Rose, said her own father started it during the Great Depression. No one should be alone on Christmas, she'd say, her voice as soft as the cashmere sweaters she always wore. It's the one night where everyone deserves to feel like they belong. It was a beautiful thought, and as a kid, I accepted it completely. Our guests were the living embodiment of the Christmas spirit, charity, community, and radical kindness. I remember them in flashes, like gold Vader autographs. When I was 6, there was Arthur, a retired librarian whose wife had passed away. He had ink-stained fingers that smelled of old paper and peppermint. He taught me how to fold the proper crane, and his laugh was a quiet, dusty rustle. He got a little teary-eyed when my mother gave him a gift, a new leather-bound book of poetry. He said it was the kindest thing anyone had done for him in a very long time.
Among
When I
Us.
was 9, there was Sarah, a foreign exchange student whose flight home got cancelled by a blizzard. He had a bright, tinkling laugh and taught us a Christmas carol in her language. We were all clumsy and off-key, but she just clapped with delight. Her energy made the whole house feel brighter. Each year was the same beautiful, heartwarming story. A week before Christmas, my father would go looking for our guest. He had a knack for it, a sixth sense. Wait. 7. What are you doing? Holy shit, that must have been so loud for you guys. I'm so sorry. I forgot to make it lower. 6-7 jump scare. How dare you, Sevi? I thought you were my friend. I will never forgive you for this. And it's back onto the story. Every year, it was the same beautiful, heartwarming story. A week before Christmas, my father would go looking for our guest. He had a knack for it, a sixth sense for finding the true one. He'd visit shelters, soup kitchens, and veterans' halls. He'd talk to people, listen, and extend the invitation. He always said he was looking for someone who had slipped through the cracks. The ones nobody will miss, he once said. The phrase sounded so charitable at the time, but now it just echoes in my head. The preparation was a whirlwind. The guest room, usually just storage for Dad's old records and my toys, was completely transformed. Fresh linens that smelled like lavender were put on the bed. A small, personal Christmas tree sat on the nightstand, with a single beautiful glass ornament on it. My mother would cook for 3 days straight. The feast was legendary, massive, golden turkey, honey-glazed ham, mountains of mashed potatoes and stuffing, and every kind of pie you would imagine. Nothing was too good for our guest. They were the guest of honor, the entire point of the celebration. As a child, I loved it. It made me feel proud. My family was good. We opened our home and our hearts. My friends' Christmases seemed so boring and selfish in comparison. Ours had meaning. We were giving somebody a perfect Christmas. But the older I got, the more the perfect picture started to show tiny cracks. It wasn't one big thing, not at first. Just a collection of small odd details that didn't quite add up. There was a secrecy for one. My father handled the selection of the guests entirely by himself. My brother Michael and I were never allowed to be part of it. If we asked where we found this year's guest, he'd just smile and say, someone who needed a little Christmas magic. Thank you so much for this 5 subs! Sivi! I'm so sorry, I haven't been able... I haven't been able to reach out. I got embarrassed on the story. But thank you. I hope that you're okay. I also have sensory issues. Thank you so much for dropping by, though. And thank you for the hype train as well. Yippee! Then there were the doors. On Christmas Eve, after our guests was settled in, my father will walk through the house and lock every single door and window. He used old, heavy skeleton keys he had kept on a separate unlabeled ring. I asked him why once when I was 12. Just a precaution, he said, patting my head. Can't have any drafts. Want to keep all this warmth inside. It sort of made sense, but it also made the house feel less like a home and more like a beautifully decorated box. And the knives. My father was meticulous about his carving knives. He had a special set. German steel with polished rosewood handles that only came out for Christmas. He'd spend hours sharpening them before the holiday. That sound, still whispering against the stone. It became one of the sounds for Christmas for me. A sound that was supposed to be festive, but it always felt wrong, deeply unsettling. The blades were always sharpened to a terrifying surgical point, far sharper than you'd ever need for a turkey. Things really started to peel off when I was 17. That was the year Michael was away at college and couldn't come home. It was the first break in our little family unit, and his absence left a quiet void in the house. Maybe that's why I started paying more attention. That year's guest was a man named Elias. He was younger than usual, maybe in his late 20s. A transient, my father explained, who'd been hopping trains for a few years. He had tired, kind eyes, and a shy smile that never quite reached them. He was quiet, but he had a gentle way about him. He told us stories about seeing the country from inside a boxcar, of sunrises in the Arizona deserts and sunsets over the Kansas plains. He was poetic, and I genuinely liked him. He was also different. The other guests had been lonely, yes, but they were also soft. Arthur the librarian, Sarah the student. There were people buffered by society who'd hit a rough patch. Elias was hardened by the road. He had a wiry strength to him, a survivor's edge I hadn't seen before. He was grateful, but not overwhelmed by our hospitality. And he kept his warm backpack with him at all times, like it was part of him. So sorry, I need a hydration break. On Christmas Eve, we sat around the fire. My mother offered Elias a glass of her famous mulled wine. It was a tradition, a warm, spiced welcome. Thank you, ma'am, but I don't drink, Elias said politely. My mother's smile didn't move, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Annoyance? No. It was more like frustration. Like an actor had gone off script. Oh, but you must, she insisted, her voice a little too bright. It's a family recipe. It's not Christmas without it. I appreciate that, but I'll have to pass, Elias said. His tone was still gentle, but firm. Oh, gentle but firm. Is this AI generated? The worst thing about AI being so rampant today is that when somebody says gentle but firm in a story, I'm like, shit, is this AI generated? But I think it isn't. I read it before and I didn't think of it. Alright, let's just continue on. A strange, tense silence hung in the air. My father cleared his throat. No, dear. If the man doesn't want any, he doesn't have to. The moment passed, but it stuck with me. Why was it so important? It was just a glass of wine. Later that night, as I headed to bed, I passed the guest room. The door was cracked open. I could hear Elias humming softly. It was a mournful traveling song, the sound of a free man. Next morning, the air in the house was thick with unspoken tension. Elias came down for breakfast looking rested after a shower, wearing a new sweater we'd left for him, but he still had that cautious, watchful look. My mother, on the other hand, was a mess. She was usually the picture of holiday grace, but her movements were jerky, her smile brittle. My father was trying to overcompensate, his laughter loud and forced. Only Nana Rose seemed unchanged, sitting by the fire, her knitting needles clicking with a steady, unnerving rhythm. The day wore on. We opened presents. Elias got a new winter coat, thick socks and sturdy boots. He was genuinely touched, and for the first time, I saw his smile finally reach his eyes. He was a good person. He deserved this. A warm meal and a safe place. While my parents were busy in the kitchen, I ended up alone with Nana Rose in the living room. Elias had gone to his room to try on his new boots. "He's a nice young man," I said, just to fill the silence. Nana Rose didn't look up from her knitting. "Yes, but he's wary, not like the others." "What do you mean?" She stopped knitting and looked right at me. Her eyes, usually so warm, were dark and serious. The tradition requires a certain receptiveness, an openness, a willingness to accept what is given. This one, he holds himself apart. A word sent a chill through me. Receptiveness, willing to accept. Sounded less like charity and more of a transaction. What were our guests supposed to be accepting? "What's in the mulled wine, Nana?" The question just slipped out. Her expression didn't change. A little something to help our guests relax, to feel at home, to make the evening smoother. She went back to her knitting. "It's a kindness, you see. It's better if they're calm." "Better for who?" The question screamed in my head, but I didn't ask. My heart was starting to pound. A sedative. They were tracking our guests. Why? To make them compliant? Nothing made sense. My mind started racing, connecting all the dots I'd ignored for years. The locked doors, the over-sharpened knives. My father looking for someone nobody will miss. A monstrous picture was starting to form, one I couldn't bear to look at. I had to know. I needed proof. I mumbled an excuse and went upstairs, past Elias's room. The door at the back of the hall I was always told to ignore. The cellar door. It was always locked. I remembered my father's ring of old keys, and I thought the spare key hook hidden behind a plaque in the kitchen. My hands were shaking as I crept back downstairs. My parents were still in the kitchen, their backs to me. The sizzle and clatter of pans covered my footsteps as I reached behind the plaque. My fingers closed around the old, heavy iron of a skeleton key. Heart in my throat, I went back upstairs. The key felt like a dark secret in my palm. I stood before the cellar door. My breath caught in my chest, and slid the key into a lock. It turned with a loud, grating click. I pulled the door open. A set of steep, narrow stairs descended into darkness. A damp metallic smell rose up to meet me, the smell of a butcher shop. I fumbled for the light switch. A single bare bulb cast a sickly yellow light on the scene below. It wasn't a wine cellar. It was the slaughterhouse. The floor was concrete with a large drain in the center. The walls were lined with hooks for hanging meat. On a large wooden table sat a collection of tools that made my stomach lurch. Cleavers, saws, and more of those terrifyingly sharp knives. Everything was spotless, but there was no mistaking its purpose. The air was thick with the ghost of blood. The most horrifying part was a large industrial freezer in the far wall. Humming ominously. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. I knew that opening it would destroy my world forever, but I had to know. I pulled the heavy lid open. A cloud of icy vapor rolled out. Inside, wrapped in white butcher paper, neatly labeled with dates, were packages. Dozens of them. My eyes fell on one near the top. The black marker read, Arthur, December 15th, 10 years ago. I stumbled back, a stream trapped in my throat, and slammed the freezer shut. My mind refused to process it. Arthur, the kind librarian. Sarah, the loving student. All of them, they weren't guests. They were ingredients. We didn't invite a stranger for Christmas dinner. We invited a stranger to the Christmas dinner. I scrambled back up the stairs, my legs weak, my vision swimming. I slammed the cellar door, fumbled the key back into the lock, and ran into my room. Collapsing on my bed, gasping for air, the cheerful Christmas music from downstairs was a grotesque joke. My family, my warm, loving family, they were monsters. I don't know how long I lay there, trapped in a storm of horror. An hour, maybe two. Then a soft knock on my door. Honey, dinner's almost ready. It was my mother. Her voice was the most comforting sound in the world, made my skin crawl. I didn't answer. The knock came again, more insistent. Sweetheart, is everything all right? I couldn't speak. The door rattled. Open the door, dear. I stayed silent, frozen. I heard her sigh, and the jingle of keys. A skeleton key slid into my lock and turned. The door swung open. My mother stood there, a concerned smile on her face. Still wearing her holiday apron. But when she saw the look on my face, her smile vanished. She knew. She knew that I knew. She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. You went into the cellar, didn't you? Her voice quiet, stripped of all of its usual warmth. I could only nod, tears streaming down my face. She sat on the edge of the bed but didn't touch me. She looked tired, and suddenly so much older. I was hoping we'd have more time, she said softly. Michael didn't find out until he was 19. Her father wanted to tell you together after the new year. Tell me? My voice was a ragged whisper. Tell me what? That you're murderers? That you're cannibals? She flinched at the word, but didn't deny it. It's not that simple. It's necessity. It's about survival. And then she told me the real story. The tradition didn't start with charity during the Depression. It started generations ago with my great-great-grandfather, who made a pact. The details were murky, but the terms were clear. The family was granted prosperity, health, and long life. But the pact required a sacrifice, a sustenance. Once a year, on the day of greatest celebration, they had to consume an outsider to renew their life force, to renew the pact. We don't enjoy it, my mother said, her voice bleeding. It's a terrible burden, but if we stop, the pact breaks. The protection vanishes, the family withers. Her great uncle tried to stop. He refused to partake. He was sick within a month and gone by spring. She looked at me, her eyes desperate. We chose people who won't be missed, people already lost to the world. We give them one perfect day, the best food, a warm fire, a feeling of belonging. It's more than they would have had, and their contribution allows our family to continue. It allows you to live, to be healthy, to have a future. I stared at her, horrified. She was just justifying mass murder as a family duty. The wine. He choked up. Let's get to sleep. She confirmed, her voice now clinical. They go to bed happy and warm and they just don't wake up. It's painless. Your father is very quick. He learned from his father, just as he will teach Michael, and just as he would have taught you. The feast. The main curse was never turkey. That was just for show. The real feast, the special roast that Nana Rose always brought up from cold storage at the last minute, was prepared separately. I looked at my mother, the woman who tucked me in at night, and I saw a stranger, a monster in a Christmas apron. Dinner is ready, she said, stepping up. Elias is asleep. Nana Rose is bringing up the roast. We're all waiting for you. She left, leaving my door open, an invitation downstairs. I can hear the faint, rhythmic sound of my father sharpening a knife. My final touch-up before the carving. I'm sitting on my bed writing this. My choice is simple and impossible. I can go downstairs and enjoy them, take my place in this monstrous tradition. I can eat the feast and seal my fate, ensuring my own survival at the cost of my soul. Or I can refuse. I can try to run, but the doors are locked, the windows are sealed. And Elias was a survivor. He was wary. He didn't drink wine. I haven't heard a sound from his room in hours. I don't know what they did to him, but how they handle guests who won't cooperate. I think about the special roast about to be served. I think about my place at the table, empty and waiting. My family has had someone new for Christmas every year, for over a century. And this year, I am the one who is new to the truth. And I have to decide if I'm going to be a guest at this feast, or if my own family will find another way to have me for dinner. Yippee! Guys, this story was good, but I don't know if it was AI generated or not. Because here's the thing, when someone says gentle but firm, or like this sort of like specific superimposing of attributes in like stories, it feels very AI generated, because that is a thing that AI text generators do sometimes. Also, second, congratulations on your evil goblin. I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope that you enjoy these evil stories that I am telling right now. You see, the problem is that with AI generation and AI generated stories, is that they take those alliterations, those things from somewhere. So there is a writer, or there are writers, that use that juxtaposition of words. So it can be difficult to know if it is just a quirk of the writer, or if it is AI. It's truly difficult to understand. To be honest, I would partake in a little cannibalism as a treat. I mean, what a ton of it. Like, do we have to eat a whole human, or can we put them in cold storage? Because according to the stuff in the basement, they have a ton of like leftovers. You don't need a whole human in between just like 4 people. I guess 5, because you know the brother was there until a year ago. So I think that maybe they don't have to kill every year, but I guess they also have to like upkeep their resources. Make sure that you have enough stuff just in case, as a precaution. What do you think, Succubitch? Would you partake if you knew your family was doing this? If you were doing this because you had already eaten human before, all of those Christmas roasts for 17 years. What will the cops do? We've got a demon on our side. A demon who really likes roasts. What would the demon do? You know what? I trust Salu to save the day. I trust Salu to come to an agreement with people. Yes. Then again, he is related to Krampus, so it's sort of like his evil twin. So he may have connections. Now, let's see. Our next story is called We Got a New Puppy for Christmas, and things haven't been the same since. I think Salu's playing League. Salu playing League? No way. Salu, what are you doing? Oh my god. He's playing League. Is that League? I don't know what League looks like. I quite literally have no idea. Snorbit is playing That looks like a Pokemon TCG simulator. I can't believe Shallow isn't here. He decided to play League instead of going to my stream. I will never forgive him. But hey, if he's playing League, then he is definitely healthy enough to buy Home Safety Hotline Holiday Worker DLC. Oh, Shallow! I am. But I wanted to ask you something. Have you bought the DLC? Yeah? Because it is on sale, just like I said. Oh my gosh, Salu. Let's see. He needs tea. Salu needs tea right now. Why did I start to look? Good. Good. You don't want to be one of the victims from the horror stories I'm reading right now on stream.
Stories?
I am. Crimbus horror stories.
No. I don't know how ASMR a sick goat is.
Sick goat ASMR?
Just
Kind of the
wheezing.
reason that we're all here.
Achoo.
Wow. Wow.
I'm so
That's what
immersed.
we should do. We should just get you enough like ASMR tools so when you're sick, you can just do ASMR streams.
That is true. It's like sponsored little story break. Sponsored by Cylinder Salud.
Wow.
Because I just finished reading a story. And I was talking about how there's like certain AI generated story triggers. And in AI stories sometimes they have like certain descriptors that is like, oh, my father talked, his voice gentle but firm. And this story had like that one singular thing. It was like a Vietnam flashback. I had to immediately pause and question myself. Did I accidentally select an AI generated Crimbus horror story?
Oh. Pork.
But it's okay because the story was good. It was fun. I mean, very predictable,
Nice.
but I think that horror Christmas tropes are already like pretty common. They're pretty easy to like catch. So yeah. Thank you so much for this Cylinder Salud sponsored story break.
You're very welcome.
Good luck with League, and good luck with Pokemon TCG Simulator. Snorble, when you finished?
I've finished playing.
Yeah, now I'm playing Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, it's Final Fantasy 14. It's just that from the screenshot it looked like League.
Oh. No, I've never played League.
Wow.
Good.
Good. Never do so. Okay, now I leave. Goodbye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Toast.
I have peer pressured the goat. Good. Now we can continue on with the rest of our stories. We got a new puppy for Christmas. Things haven't been the same since. Her name is Elsa. She's Katahula. 18 pounds of pure energy, and if you ask my husband, The best damn present I could have gotten him this year. Me personally, I'm more of a cat person, but he is allergic, so this was a compromise because I have heard her breed is especially smart. For the past couple of weeks, Brad has done his best to train it to sit and stay and potty, and for the most part, that has been successful. I guess I didn't start noticing anything out of the ordinary until the new year started. Elsa is typically an outside dog, but because of the bad storms we've been getting lately, we let her stay inside a few nights. At first she was confused and whiny, but after Brad showed her a little quilt that she could sleep on the head of her bed, she relaxed and lay down. That first night with her in the room is when I noticed something strange. I'm a light sleeper, and any little noise can have me up, so I usually wear earplugs just because of my husband's occasional snoring. But since the dog was there, I figured it would be better to listen in case she needed to be let outside to do her business. Instead, I heard the slow growl followed by what sounded like nails scraping against the tile floor in the kitchen. I tried to wake Brad up, but I swear that man could sleep through a bomb going off. So instead, I wrapped up my nightgown and walked towards the kitchen, half awake and nervous, because I thought maybe we might have intruders. I used the dim light on my phone to look toward the kitchen, where I saw the fridge door propped open and the silhouette of a tall figure standing there looking for food. It was hard to make out in the darkness. It resembled what many people call a counterfeit might look like. With shaggy hair and mangled teeth, it made the most horrendous of sounds as it ate up our food. I slowly backed away from the kitchen, careful not to alert it of my presence, and then skulked back to bed trying again to wake up Brad. Then I heard the beast follow me, making this slow rumbling noise as I hurried out of the bedroom. Then I shook Brad awake as hard as I could. He gradually opened his eyes and pointed frantically toward the hallway. Then, much to my surprise, Elsa came trotting into the room. Brad slowly got up, irritated and half awake as he double-checked to make sure the house was empty. There was no sign of the creature. At first I thought that I was losing my mind, but a quick check of the fridge told me that something had definitely gotten inside there and devoured most of our leftovers. Brad believed it was raccoons. I decided that had to be the most reasonable answer to this predicament and tried to get some more sleep. The night after that, things got worse. This time I was hearing what sounded like a gnashing and growling noise. This time, I grabbed the bat near the edge of our bed and slowly treaded toward the hole. There were long, deep scratches against the wall. It looked like a bear had come through there. I only found the puppy in the living room, exhausted and looking like she had lost a little fur. There was a dark stain on the carpet around her like she had just finished eating something. The next morning I convinced Brad to take her to the vet to be sure everything was fine. The reports came back clean as a whistle, but they did say they found a few small bone fragments inside her belly, but they couldn't identify what they were from, possibly a squirrel. Last night was the worst. Brad had got a call from one of our renters about a drip and had to go around 7. The storm was so severe he insisted that Elsa stay inside. I didn't even consider sleep. She just sat there at the edge of the recliner watching me. It felt unsettling. I took out my phone and decided to video the phone as much as I could. And now I'm intrigued. What does a katahula look like? Oh, they're cute. 13 minutes after I started doing it, the first sign that something was off showed to me. She was convulsing, whimpering and shaking as she rolled about the carpet. I panicked and grabbed the leash, taking her out to the front patio as quickly as I could. The storm raged louder as Elsa made that same strange noise. Then, she began to change in front of my eyes. I kept the camera on her, desperate to show Brad what was happening. Then, before I knew it, she lashed out at me. Her gentle paws had become dangerously twisted claws, and she slashed at my arm. I dropped the phone and it fell down the steps of the porch into the mud. She was suddenly twice my size and standing up on 2 feet. I scrambled back into the house as the metamorphosis finished, and she began to howl loudly. I slammed the door and felt her strong body slam against the house, again and again. She had likely tasted my blood, and now she was humping me. I barricaded the door and moved to the bedroom, the strange monster digging and snarling as I tried to search for a way inside. Before long it got dark. I couldn't see where Elsa had gone off to. There was something evil in the air as I kept away from windows. At one point she tried to break open the front glass, and let it bounce firearm. She finally used all her strength to break down the door, and I fired 6 shots onto her belly, and she fell down with a loud snap and grumble. I emptied the rest of the clip into her and lay there on the ground, grasping for air. Sometime in the midst of the loss of blood, I lost consciousness, and Brad found me this morning. He was more confused than anything, asking about a home invader. I was barely coherent, trying to explain how this had happened, but Brad just looked at me strangely, as though I had truly gone mad. Then I saw the reason why. Elsa was running behind him, wagging her tail. Oh, spooky. Everyone knows that silver bullets are the only thing that can stop a wolf. Yeah, I sometimes like being a little peeper and seeing what people are up to. Also, I have to peer pressure Salu to buy the games I give him money for, or else he will forget to buy them. I know him very well. But hey, he bought it. So, that's good. Because I gave him the money to buy it. And I don't want him to spend it on ketchup. Again. What do we think about this story? This one's definitely not AI generated. It is from 7 years ago, which means it's good. It means that we're good. It truly feels sad that now you just gotta be super alert for anything that has to do with possible AI generated stories. We truly are in one of the worst timelines ever. But at the end of the day, I think the story was pretty good. I don't know if you guys know, but here in Latin America, but specifically in Mexico, people have the belief that dark wizards and dark witches can turn into animals, most often dogs. They call them nahuals. And oftentimes they abduct young women and children to feast upon. But this one just looked like a regular old dog monster. It just wanted a little snack, a warm home. I'm gonna add ketchup and fur when I go back to just chilling. No! Ketchup! Why must everyone be obsessed with ketchup? Please. This is a problem. This has become a problem. Salu has corrupted your mind. We are now the cult of ketchup. Wait, does Salu have cult of the lamb? He should, and he should call it the cult of ketchup. Yes. Cult of ketchup. Ketchup cult. No. Let's see. What home safety hotline has for us? Home safety hotline shit. I may have gotten a little distracted. I mean, the next story that we have, which is called The Christmas Elf is Watching You. Yippee! Elf in the Shelf. Elf in the Shelf is a tradition that my country doesn't have. It is something that apparently is very US-centric. But, you see, I always thought the idea of Elf in the Shelf is really funny. But apparently some kids are terrified by it. What do you think of Elf in the Shelf? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? What are your opinions? Because right now we're going to meet an elf in the shelf. Let me cover your ears. My roommate has an elf on the shelf for his kid, and when they visit, I like to do funny things for him. Aw, that's so cute. The Christmas elf is watching you. What if I was in the bedroom and I did something bad? Would the elf still see it? My son's eyes were worried as he looked up at me. Yep, that's how it works. As long as he's in our house, he sees everything you're doing. He's magic, just like Santa. Yikes. In retrospect, the whole thing is creepy and off-putting, especially considering what happened in the weeks following that. The elf was in my bedroom last night, Daddy. We were at the breakfast table the next morning. Oh, really? Well, see, just like I told you, he's keeping an eye on you. Kids are always making up stories. He told me he was watching me real close, and that you and Mom better be good too. Because if you aren't, he's gonna be angry. I just nodded and told Sammy to eat the rest of his cereal and drink his orange juice. We were going to be late for school. My wife told me 2 days later that she was getting worried about Sammy. He kept talking about the homemade elf we had crafted together as a family, and how it was telling him to do things. But he wouldn't say what. I told her I would talk with him. I think she meant he was being told by the elf to be a good boy or something like that. But I should have realized by the look in her eyes that it was something more serious. We were never good at communicating, the two of us. Maybe it was my fault what ended up happening. I spoke with Sammy that night in his bedroom as I was tucking him in and asked him what he had meant. What do you mean when you told Mommy that the elf tells you to do things? He opened his mouth to speak, then paused and seemed to think about it for a second. His eyes drifted up and he began to play with the fabric of the bed cover self-consciously. What did he mean? Well, he just said to be good, Daddy. That's all. To do good things. In retrospect, it was obviously a lie, but I was too distracted by my thoughts of work to pay attention. I only listened to the words and heard what I wanted to hear. Alright, good night, Sammy. Sweet dreams. I was slammed at work for the next few days, and so was my wife. She worked in retail, so she barely saw any of us as it got closer to Christmas. I told her I had talked to her son and everything was okay. Was just trying to be good before Christmas. She told me that didn't sound right. He had been acting very unusual and hadn't liked the tone of his voice or the distant look in his eyes. As she said that, I realized he had been increasingly aloof lately. He hadn't been finishing his breakfast or dinner. Wasn't asking his usual 10 million questions a minute. He had put on his shirt inside out that morning, and 2 days before that, it had been backwards. The teacher had called from school to ask if there was trouble at home. All red flags. Then, the following night, I realized something was terribly wrong with me. I was lying in bed with my eyes open after struggling to sleep for hours. Then I noticed movement in the doorway. The darkness was nearly total, but I could swear I had seen something or someone crawling on the floor. It was so hard to see, though. My heart pounding, I reached for the bedside lamp, feeling for it with my hands. Trembling, I managed to grab the cord and pull it up just as the shadowy figure got up to the bedside. It was barely visible, but I could just make it out. The form of a person crawling like a wild animal on the floor, moving quickly and erratically. My heart was in my throat as the light turned on, blinding for a second. I couldn't see anything. Blinking the light away and trying not to panic, I finally managed to see what was happening. There was no one in the bedroom but my wife and I. Unable to shake the feeling that I had seen something, I jumped out of bed and looked underneath, like a kid checking for monsters. The image flashed before my eyes again of what I had seen just moments before. A barely visible silhouette in the pitch-black room. It had looked like someone on the ground on all fours moving around quietly, like a predator hunting in the night. Someone small, the size of a child. I left our bedroom, heart still pounding, taking a look back at my wife still snoring in bed. She was sleeping with a face mask to block out the light, so I hadn't woken her up. I went quickly down the hall to Sammy's bedroom and looked inside. My blood turned ice cold. The bed was empty. I heard giggling from down the hall, then screams. My wife let out a blood-curdling howl of agony and sheer horror. Everything went in slow motion, and my legs felt like they were quicksand as I spun around and tried to hurry back towards the bedroom, towards the sound of something awful. It was like the sound of a side of beef being taken apart by a butcher, but wetter. Blood was everywhere when I went into the room and saw the image that will haunt me forever. My son was standing on the bed, stabbing my wife again and again with a long chef's knife. His eyes were distant, and he almost looked like he was sleepwalking as he stabbed her through the chest, face, arms, and belly, sporadically and randomly. I realized suddenly why she wasn't fighting back. She was dead. I let out a choked whimper of horrified sadness. And that's when I saw the elf. He was standing on a dresser, cheering Sammy on. He was jumping up and down gleefully, telling him to stab, 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 and to kill, kill, kill. My only son turned to face me. "Did I do good, Daddy?" The elf said Mommy was bad. You said she lied to you yesterday when you asked what she bought you for Christmas. You said she needed to get punished. The elf was looking at me, waiting to hear what I would say to him. Better be careful now, I thought to myself. The elf has a twisted set of morals. What did the elf say about murder, Sammy? You said it's okay because she lied. People aren't supposed to die, Daddy. His eyes were glazed over and he climbed off of the bed and approached me, splattered head to toe in blood and gore. You never lie, right, Daddy? He was holding the knife up in the air, pointed in towards me, looking ready to stab again. I tried not to. Good. That's good, Daddy. Come on, Mr. Elf. Let's go back to sleep. The little handmade elf that we had crafted together as a family climbed down carefully from top of the dresser and joined my son at the door. He looked up at me with mischievous eyes made from cut-out construction paper. I don't know how, but that elf has brainwashed my son. He's turning him into something else, his puppet. I'm terrified to speak, too scared to pick up the phone. What if someone asks me how my wife is doing? What will I say? I need to be really careful not to lie or do anything else naughty. The elf is always naughty. The elf is always watching. Hello, Dave. Also, couldn't I buy you ketchup on Throne? No, because that's not how Throne works in my country. Unfortunately, it only works for payout gifts. Tell me, sucky bitch, what do you do with your elf in the shelf? Do you use the elf to brainwash children too? Oh man, I wanted to give you ketchup. It's okay, you don't need to. We don't really use much ketchup in my home. We're more of a coffee household, you see. Kill the elf. Elf goes kill. I do really love listening and hearing stories about Elf in the Shelf. Apparently, my sister told me that she didn't want to do the Elf on the Shelf tradition when her husband told her about it because she thought it was creepy. I guess, given the fact that we are taught from a very young age that Jesus is always watching us and that God is always watching, wouldn't that be also pretty creepy? Double standards. Shaking my head right now. Good. What kind of candy did you get? I hope it was nice candy. I love candy. But yeah. I only eat lollipops. What kind of lollipops? That bird did it. Yeah. The good thing about being a Spanish speaker is that I can purr real easily. I'm just a furry guy. I will be doing my cup for a second and putting myself some snacks, so I'll be right back. I hope you guys enjoy some of the music and some of the ambience. I'll leave you guys on with this. I think that it is cool. But for now, I will be off to the bathroom. Is that a blanket? A ghost? Oh, that's so spooky. Just according to Keikaku. I need to be careful when spraying. I don't want to damage the mic. Do you mind getting your ear away for a second? I'm sure that you'll be okay with that. Also, by the way, my pronouns are they, them. I am a ghost. Absolutely. Wisp sacrifice. I hope everybody dies. I mean, who said that? I know, Frida. Who could have possibly said that? But that was the last of our Christmas stories. And now we will be reading some of one of my favorite r/no sleep stories, which in fact was actually published into a book. You look at that. People are now able to pursue their passions. Congratulations for becoming the most bloodthirsty wisp. I hope you enjoy your bloodshed. You guys know that I bought scissors especially to cut Frida's hair? Because when she was pooping, some of the hair got stained, or her poop got caught on the hair, so we had to. But that is all in the past. She now has butt haircuts. I'll be covering your ears for a second if you don't mind me. Both of them this time. Because we are reading from a memory. Does Rita approve of the scissors? She tolerates them. That is all I can say on her behalf. Now, Rita, I know you want to play, but it's time for spooky stories. If Rita doesn't like them, I don't like them. She tolerates them. That is something. Ugh. Sorry. Rita wanted me to throw her ball. It is a very special ball for her. And now, it's time for our next story. This one is actually multiple parts. And this first part is called Footsteps This is long, so I apologize for that. I've never had to tell the story with enough detail to actually explain it all the way. But it is true, and it happened when I was about 6 years old. In a quiet room, if you press your ear against a pillow, you can hear your heartbeat. As a kid, the muffled, rhythmic beats sounded like soft footsteps on a carpeted floor. So as a kid, almost every night, just as I was about to drift off to sleep, I would hear these footsteps and I would be ripped back to consciousness, terrified. That reminds me. Back when I was little, I was also really scared of my own heartbeat and of other people's heartbeats. That is because I thought that if I could listen to their heartbeats while I was asleep, then maybe when I woke up, I wouldn't be able to hear their heartbeats anymore. And that was because they died on their sleep, and I wouldn't have been able to realize it until I woke up. So whenever I slept with my parents because I was scared of the dark, that also drove my anxiety off the wall. Because I just thought that maybe, just maybe, I would wake up to them being dead from a heart attack. And then what was I supposed to do? So, I sort of get why this person would be afraid of their own heartbeat. Especially that muffled sound that you can only hear when you are just about to go to sleep. For my entire childhood, I lived with my mother in a fairly nice neighborhood that was in a transitional phase. People of lower economic means were gradually moving in, and my mother and I were two of these people. You live in the kind of house you see being transported in 2 pieces on the interstate, but my mom took good care of it. There were a lot of woods surrounding the neighborhood that I would play in and explore during the day. But at night, as things often do to a kid, they took a more sinister feeling. This coupled with the fact that, due to the nature of our house, there was a fairly large crawl space underneath filled my mind with imaginary monsters and inescapable scenarios, which would consume my thoughts when I was awoken by the footsteps. I told my mom about the footsteps, and she said that I was just imagining things. I persisted enough that she blasted my ears with water from a turkey baster once just to placate me, since I thought that would help. Of course it didn't. Despite all of the creepiness and footsteps, the only weird thing that ever happened was that every now and then I would wake up on the bottom of the bunk despite having gone to sleep on the top. But this wasn't really weird, since I'd sometimes get up to piss and or get something to drink and could remember just going back to sleep in the bottom bunk. I'm an only child, so it didn't really matter. This would happen once or twice a week, but waking up on the bottom bunk wasn't too terrifying. But one night I didn't wake up on the bottom bunk. I had heard the footsteps but was too far gone to be woken up by them. And when I was awoken, it wasn't from the sound of footsteps or a nightmare, but because I was cold. Really cold. When I opened my eyes, I saw stars. I was in the woods. I sat up immediately and tried to figure out what was going on. I thought I was dreaming, but that didn't seem right, though neither did me being in the woods. There was a deflated pool float right in front of me, one of those ones shaped like a shark. This only added to the surreal feeling. But after a while, it seems like I just wasn't going to wake up because I wasn't asleep. I stood up to orient myself, but I didn't recognize these woods. I only played in the woods by my house all the time, and so I knew them really well. But if these aren't the same old woods, then how could I get out? I took a step and felt a shooting pain by my foot, which knocked me back to where I had just been laying. I had stepped on a thorn. By the light of the moon, I could see that they were everywhere. I looked at my other foot, but it was fine. As a matter of fact, so was the rest of me. I didn't have another scratch on me, and I wasn't even that dirty. I cried for a little bit and then stood back up. I didn't know which way to go, so I just picked the direction. I resisted the urge to call out since I wasn't sure I wanted to be found by who or what might be out there. I walked forward, seemed like hours. I tried to walk in a straight line and tried to course correct when I had to take detours. But I was a kid and I was afraid. There weren't any howls or screams, and only once did I hear any noise that scared me. It sounded like a crying baby. I think now that it was just a cat, but I panicked. I ran veering in different directions to avoid big thicks of bushes and collapsed trees. And I was paying close attention to where I stepped because by that point my feet were in pretty bad shape. I paid too much attention to where I was stepping and not enough where those steps were leading me, because not long after hearing the cry I saw something that filled me with a kind of despair I haven't experienced since. It was the pool float. I was only 10 feet from where I had woken up.
No. Shh.
This wasn't magic or some supernatural space bending. I was lost. Up until that moment, I thought more about getting out of the woods than how I got in. Being back at the beginning caused my mind to swim. I wasn't even sure that these were my woods. I'd only been hoping that they were. Had I run in a huge circle around that spot, or did I just get turned around and start making my way back? How was I going to get out? At the time I thought the North Star was just the brightest star, so I looked and found the brightest one and followed it. Eventually, things started to look more familiar, and when I saw the ditch, a dirt ditch my friends and I would have dirt-clawed wars in, I knew I had made it out. By that point I was walking really slowly because my feet hurt so much. But I was so happy to be close home that I broke into a light jog. When I actually saw the roof of my house over a neighboring, lower-set house, I let out a light sob and walked up and ran faster. I just wanted to be home. I had already decided that I wouldn't say anything, because I had no idea what I could possibly say. I would get back in the house somehow, clean up, and get in bed. My heart sunk as I rounded the corner and my house came fully into view. Every light in the house was on. I knew my mom was up, and I knew I would have to explain. Or try to explain where I had been, and I couldn't even figure out where to start. My run became a jog, which became a walk. I saw her silhouette through the blinds, and although I was worried about how to explain things to her, that didn't matter to me at this point. I walked up the couple of steps to the porch and put my hand on the doorknob and turned. Right before I pushed it open, two arms wrapped around me and pulled me back. I screamed as loud as I could. "Mom! Help me! Please, Mom!" The feeling of being so close to being safe and then being physically pulled away from it filled me with a kind of dread that is, even after all these years, indescribable. The door I had been torn away from opened, and a flash of hope shot through my heart. But it wasn't my mom. It was a man, and he was enormous. I thrashed around and kicked at the shins of the person holding me while also trying to get away from the person who had just come out of my house. I was scared, but I was also furious. "Let me go! Where is she? Where's my mom? What do you do to her?" As my throat stung from screaming and I was drawing in another breath, I became aware of a sound that had been present for longer than I had perceived it. "Honey, please, calm down. I've got you." It sounded like my mom. The arms loosened and set me down, as a man approaching me blocked out the porch light with his head, and I noticed his clothes. He was a cop. I turned to face the voice behind me and saw that it really was my mom. Everything was okay. I began to cry, and the three of us went inside. "I'm so glad you're home, sweetie. I was worried I'd never see you again." By that point, she was crying too. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I just want to come home. I'm sorry. It's okay. Just don't never do it again. I'm not sure what me or my sins could take it. A little laughter broke through my sobs, and I smiled a bit. Oh, I'm sorry for kicking you, but why do you have to grab me like that? I was just afraid you'd run away again. I was confused. What do you mean? I found your note in your pillow, she said, and pointed at the piece of paper that the police officer was sliding across the table. It was a running away letter. It said that I was unhappy, never wanted to see her or any of my friends again. The police officer exchanged a few words with my mom on the porch while I stared at the letter. I didn't remember writing a letter. I didn't remember anything about any of this. But even if I sometimes went to the bathroom at night and didn't remember, or even if I could have gone into the woods on my own, even if all that could have been true, the only thing I knew at that point was, this isn't how you spell my name. I didn't write this letter. After a conversation with my mother about what happened when I was a kid, I was reminded of something that cannot be unrelated to this. It answers some questions about the story, but raises other questions that I'm still looking into. It also suggests that much of what I've been told about my life since I was a child wasn't true. You can find the news story here. Oh, spooky. Outbreak just started, so I'm gonna take a little break to hydrate and to also check out the next link in the story. If you guys have not noticed just yet, this is the Pen Pal series by 1,000 Vultures. You see 1,000 Vultures and Reddit. The number, not like the written out word. It is one of the more well-known stories of r/no sleep, and with reason. It is a really, really cool horror story, and even if it isn't Christmas related, it is one of my favorite ones to read out loud, especially because it does have some really good parts that are not necessarily supernatural. But yeah, how are we feeling today? How do we think about the ASMR? And I'm not super good at it. I don't know if the stuff that I'm doing with this mic is working, but hopefully it is. Oh, so Frida's getting a little bit restless. I know, baby girl. Usually when I do streams like this where I cannot really hold her or do much stuff with her, she does get a little restless. And she does start getting a little bit mean because I'm not giving her attention. I need a trusted adult. I'm scared now. No, it's okay. This is just a retrospective. This happened years ago. So you don't have to worry. Everything will be okay. Isn't that right, Frida? Come here. Frida will be joining us for the remainder of this outbreak. I gave her a kiss. I hope you don't mind the sounds of me gulping my water. But it is very important to keep yourselves hydrated when you do a speaking heavy ASMR stream like this. But we can now continue on to the rest of the story. Are we excited? Isn't this exciting?
Frida, what are you doing with that
brush. No, no. This brush isn't for licking. Oh, baby girl. Keep drinking. What is that supposed to mean? I just finished all of my water. I have no more water left. I'd have to get out and get another refill. Why? Are you scared? Are you perchance a little scared? Why is that? Don't worry about it. Everything will be okay. Yes. You are a brave boy, aren't you? I still can't believe 7 tried to make me say 6-7 with every word. How rude. Six, seven, 6-7, 6-7. Back in my day, it was 69. The funny sex number. Let me just massage your ears for a second. How has your day been so far? How has the stream been so far? Is the audio okay? Is the ambiance okay? I forget I am clicker trained and then I hear a clicker. Oh? Come here. Come here, boy. Do a trick. Speak. Sit down. Oh, what fell? Something just fell down. I would never treat you like a dog. Never. Let's see. I wonder if microfiber cloth sounds different than regular cloth. Let's try that out, shall we? Mission, but did you say ASMR? How are you supposed to get all the tingles? And all of the super cool bi-directional sound if you are not using headphones or earphones? Blanket Girls Streets there. My pronouns are they them. Please. I'm not usually annoying about this, but I will be annoying today. My pronouns are exclusively they them. Rita's not very happy about me ignoring her. She has now resorted to sabotage. I think that my voice has recovered enough. So, we can continue on to the story. This chapter is named Balloon. A couple days ago, I posted a story in Cold Footsteps here on r/no sleep. There were a number of questions that made me curious about certain details about my childhood, and so I spoke with my mother. Exacerbated by my questions, she said, "Why don't you just tell them about the goddamn balloons if you're so interested?" As soon as she said that, I remembered so much about my childhood that I had forgotten. This story will provide some greater context for the previous story, which I think you should read first. Come here, Frida. Though the order isn't of vital importance, reading that story first will put you in my place more effectively, since I remembered the effects of footsteps first. If you have questions for anything, feel free to ask, and I'll try to answer them. Also, the stories are long, so heads up on that. I'm just hesitant to leave out any details that might be important. When I was 5 years old, I went to an elementary school that, from what I've come to understand, was really adamant about the importance of learning through activity. It was part of a new program designed to allow children to rise at their own pace, and to facilitate the school, encourage teachers to come up with really inventive lesson plans. A teacher was given the latitude to create his or her own themes which would run for the duration of the grade, and all the lessons in math, reading, etc. would be designed in the spirit of the theme. These themes were called groups. There was a space group, a sea group, an earth group, and the group I was in, community. In kindergarten in this country, you don't learn much except how to tie your shoes and how to share, so most of it isn't very memorable. I only remember 2 things very clearly. I was the best at writing my name the right way, and the balloon project, which was really the hallmark of the community group, since it was a pretty clever way to show how a community functioned at a really basic level. You've probably heard of this activity. On one Friday, I remember it being Friday because I was excited about the project and it being the end of the week. Toward the beginning of the year, we walked into the classroom in the morning and saw that there was a fully inflated balloon tied up with a string taped to each of our desks. Sitting on each of our desks was a marker, a pen, and a piece of paper, and an envelope. The project was to write a note on the paper, put it in the envelope, and attach it to the balloon, which we could draw a picture on if we wanted. Most of the kids started fighting over the balloons because they wanted different colors. But I started on my note, which I had thought a lot about. All the notes had to follow a loose structure, but we were allowed to be creative within those loose boundaries. My note was something like this. "Hi, you found my balloon. My name is Name, and I attend something elementary school. You can keep the balloon, but I hope you write me back. I like riding max, exploring, building forts, swimming, and friends. What do you like? Write me back soon. Here's $1 for the mail." On the dollar I wrote 4 stamps right across the front, which my mom said wasn't necessary, but I thought it was genius, so I did it. The teacher took a Polaroid of each of us with our balloons, and had us put them in the envelope along with our letter. They also included another letter that I assume explained the nature of the project and sincere appreciation for anyone's participation in writing back and sending photos of their city or neighborhood. That was the whole idea, to build a sense of community without having to leave the school, and to establish safe contact with other people. It seemed like such a fun idea. Over the next couple of weeks, the letters started to roll in. Most came with pictures of different landmarks, and each time a letter would come in, the teacher would pin the picture on a big wall map we had put up, showing where the letter had come from and how far the balloon had traveled. It was a really smart idea, because we actually looked forward to coming to school to see if we had gotten our letter. For the duration of the year, we had 1 day a week where we could write a back to our pen pal, or another student's pen pal, in case our letter hadn't come in yet. Mine was one of the last to arrive. When I came to the classroom, I looked at my desk, and once again didn't see any letter waiting for me. But as I sat down, the teacher approached me and handed me an envelope. It must have looked so excited, because as I was about to open it, she put her hand on mine to stop me and said, "Please don't be upset." I didn't understand what she meant. Why would I be upset now that my letter had come? Initially, I was mystified that she would even know what was in the envelope, but now I realized that of course the teachers had screened the contents to make sure there was nothing obscene. But all the same, how could I be disappointed? When I opened the envelope, I understood. The only thing in the envelope was a Polaroid, but I couldn't really make out what it was. It looked like a patch of a desert, but it was too blurry to decipher. It appeared as if the camera had been moved while the picture was being taken. There was no return address, so I couldn't even write back if I wanted to. I was crushed. The school year pressed on, and the letters had stopped coming for nearly all of the other students. After all, you can only continue written correspondence with the kindergartner for so long. Everyone, including myself, I lost interest in the letters almost completely, and I got another envelope. My excitement was rejuvenated, and I reveled in the fact that I was still getting a love letter when most of the other pen pals had abandoned their involvement. It made sense that I received another delivery. There had been nothing but a blurry picture in the first one, so this was probably to make up for that. But again, there was no letter at all, just another picture. This one was more distinguishable, but I still didn't understand it. The photograph was angled all the way up, catching the top corner of a building. The rest of the image was distorted by a lens flare from the sun. Because the balloons didn't travel very far, and because they were all launched on the same day, the board became a bit cluttered, and so the policy for the students still exchanging letters became that they could take the photographs home. My best friend Josh had the second highest number of pictures taken home by the end of the year. His pen pal was really cooperative and sent him pictures from all around the neighboring city. Josh took home, I think, 4 pictures. I took home nearly 50. The envelopes were all opened by the teacher, but after a while, I stopped looking at the pictures. However, I saved them in one of my drawers that housed my collection of rocks, baseball cards, and comic book cards. Marble medal cards, for those who might remember. And the miniature baseball batting helmets that I cut out of a vending machine at Winn-Dixie after T-ball games. With the school year over, my attention turned to other things. My mom had gotten me a small snow cone machine for Christmas that year, and Josh had really coveted it. So much so that his parents bought him a slightly nicer one for his birthday, which was toward the end of the school year. That summer we had the idea that we could set up a snow cone stand to make money. We thought we'd make a fortune selling snow cones at $1. Josh lived in a different neighborhood, but we eventually decided that my neighborhood would be better because there were a lot of people who cared for their lawns. Their yards in my neighborhood were slightly bigger. I did it for 5 weekends in a row until my mom told us that we had to stop. I've only recently come to understand why she did that. On the 5th weekend, Josh and I were counting our money. Because we had a machine, we each had to separate the stack of money that we put together into one stack, and we then split it evenly. That made a total of $16 that day. And as Josh paid out my $5, a feeling of profound surprise consumed me. The dollar said, 4 stamps. Josh noticed my shock and asked if he had miscounted. I told him about the dollar and he said, "That's so cool, man." As I thought about it, I came to agree. The idea that the dollar had made it right back to me after changing so many hands floored me. I rushed inside to tell my mom, but my excitement coupled with her being distracted by a phone call made my story incomprehensible. She responded simply by saying, "Oh wow, that's neat." Frustrated, I ran back outside and told Josh that I had something to show him. Back in my room, I opened the drawer and took up the stack of envelopes and showed him some of the pictures. I started with the first picture, and we went through about 10 before Josh lost interest and asked if I wanted to go play in the ditch. Before his mom came to pick him up, so that's what we did. We had a dirt war for a while, but it was interrupted several times by rustling in the woods around us. There were raccoons and stray cats that lived there, but this was making a little too much noise, and we traded guesses at what it was in an attempt to scare each other. Our last guess was that it was a mummy, but in the end, Josh kept insisting that it was a robot because of the sounds that we heard. Before we left, he got a little serious and looked me right in the eyes and said, "You heard it, didn't you? It sounded like a robot. Heard it too, right?" I had heard it, and since it sounded mechanical, I agreed that it was probably a robot. It's only now that I understand what we heard. When we got back, Josh's mom was waiting for him at the kitchen table with my mom. Josh told his mom about the robot. My mom laughed and Josh went home. My mom and I ate dinner, and then I went to bed. I didn't stay in bed for long before I crept out and decided that, due to the face events, I would revisit the envelope since now the whole affair seemed much more interesting. I took the first envelope and set it in the floor, and set the blurry desert Polaroid on top. I laid the second envelope right next to it and placed the oddly angled Polaroid of a building's top corner on top, and did it with each picture until they formed a grid that was about 5 by 10. I was always taught to be careful with things that I was collecting, even if I wasn't sure if they were valuable. I noticed that the pictures gradually became more decipherable. There was a tree with a bird on it, a speed limit sign, a power line, a group of people walking into some building, and then I saw something that vexed me so powerfully that I can now, as I write this, directly remember feeling dizzy and incapable of only a single repeating thought. Why am I in this picture? In this photograph of the group of people entering the building, I saw myself holding hands with my mother in the very back of the crowd of people. They were at the very edge of the photo, but it was undeniably us. And as my eyes roamed over the sea of Polaroids, I became increasingly anxious. It was really an odd feeling. It wasn't fear. It was the feeling you get when you're in trouble. I'm not sure why I was flooded with that feeling, but there I sat, floundering on the distinct sense that I had done something wrong. And this feeling only intensified as I looked at the rest of the photos, at the one that had so powerfully struck me. I was in every photo. None of them were close shots. None of them were only of me. But I was in every single one of them. Off to the side, in the back, bottom of the frame. Some of them only had the tiniest part of my face captured at the edge of the photo, but nevertheless, I was always there. I didn't know what to do. Their mind works in funny ways as a kid. There was a large part of me that was afraid of getting in trouble simply for still being up. So I already had the looming feeling of having done something wrong. I decided that I would wait until tomorrow. The next day, my mom was off work and spent most of the morning cleaning up around the house. I watched cartoons, I imagine, and I waited. I waited until I thought it was a good time to show her the Polaroids. When she went out to get the mail, I grabbed a couple of pictures and put them on the table in front of me as I sat waiting for her to come back in. When she returned, she was already opening the mail and threw some junk mail into the trash can, and I said, "Mom, can you come here for a second? I have these pictures." After a minute, "Just give me a minute, honey. I need to mark these on the calendar." After a minute or two, she came and stood behind me and asked me what I needed. I could hear her shuffling with the mail behind me, but just looked at the Polaroids and told her about them. As I explained more and pointed to the pictures, her frequent ahas and okays decreased, and she was suddenly completely quiet, only making little noise with the mail. The next noise I heard from her sounded as if she was trying to catch her breath in a room that had no air left in it. At last her struggling gasps were conquered, and she simply dropped the remaining mail on the table and ran to the kitchen to get the phone. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know about any of these. Please don't be mad at me. With the phone pressed to her ear, she was walking/running back and forth and shouting into it. I nervously fiddled with the mail sitting next to my Polaroids. The top envelope had something sticking out of it that I thoughtlessly and anxiously pulled out until it came out. It was another Polaroid. Confused, I thought that somehow one of my Polaroids had slipped into the stack when she threw the mail down. When I turned it over and looked at it, I realized that I had not seen this one before. To my dismay, it was me, but this one was a much closer shot. I was surrounded by trees and smiling. But it wasn't just me, I noticed. Josh was there too. This was us from yesterday. I started yelling for my mom, who was still screaming into the phone. I repeatedly yelled for her until she finally responded with, "What?" And I could only think to ask, "Why are you calling?" "I'm talking with the police, honey." "But why? I'm sorry. I didn't do anything." She answered me with a response that I never understood until I was forced to revisit these events from the earliest years of my life. She grabbed the envelope off the table and the picture Josh and I spun and sliding next to the Polaroids in front of me. She held the envelope up to my eyes, but I could only look at her and watch as all the color began draining out of her face. With tears welling up in her eyes, she said that she had to call the police because there was no postmark. For those who wanted more information, you can find it here. Oh jeez. A bell just fell. Give me a second. I have to make sure Frida doesn't need it. I have to be very careful because I handle a lot of small stuff when I do ASMR, and Frida could get any of those in her tiny little cat mouth. Frida. What? Frida, do you want to say hi to the audience? Frida kisses. You may not hear it, but I'm giving Frida kisses right now. They're very important for Frida development. For those of you who have read my other stories and asked if there was more and received cryptic answers from me, I want to apologize for being dishonest. I said several times in the comments that nothing really happened after footsteps, but that wasn't true. The events of the following story were locked away in the recesses of my mind. I've always remembered them. It wasn't until I remembered balloons and spoke with my mother about the following events that I realized how intertwined the story was with everything else. I originally hadn't really planned on sharing this online. My desire to withhold this memory was mostly due to the fact that I don't think I showed good judgment in it. I also wanted consent from another person to tell it, so as to not misrepresent what transpired. I didn't expect there to be a lot of interest in my other stories, so I never thought I'd really get pressed for more details, and I would have been happy to keep this to myself for the rest of my life. I haven't really been able to reach the other party, but I would feel disingenuous withholding this story from those who wanted more information. now that I've spoken with my mother and another connecting line has been drawn. What follows is exactly as a recollection as I put in the letter. As I could manage. I apologize for the length again. No, Frida. Let's see. I spent the summer before my first year of elementary school learning how to climb trees. There was one peculiar pine tree outside my house that seemed almost designed for me. It had branches that were so low I could easily grab them without a boost, and for the first couple of days after I learned how to pull myself up, I would just sit on the lowest branch, dangling my feet. The tree outside our back fence and was easily visible from the kitchen, which was just... My rating is going down as we speak. The tree was outside our back fence and was easily visible from the kitchen window, which was just above the sink. For too long, my mother and I developed a routine where I would go play on the tree when she washed the dishes, because she could easily see me while she did other things. As the summer passed by, my abilities grew, and before too long I was climbing fairly high. As the tree got taller, the branches not only got thinner, but more widely spaced, and so I eventually reached a point where I couldn't actually climb any higher. And so the game had to change. I began to concentrate on speed, and in the end I could reach my highest branch in 25 seconds. I got too confident one afternoon. I tried to step from a branch before I had firmly grabbed the next one. I fell about 20 feet and broke my arm really badly in 2 places. My mom was running toward me yelling, and I remember her sounding like she was underwater, but I don't remember what she said. What I do remember is being surprised by just how white my bone was. I was going to start kindergarten with a cast and wouldn't even have fingerprints to sign it. And I must have felt terrible, because the day after his dad's she brought him. He was just a baby and was striped with tan and white. As soon as she put him down, he crawled into an empty case of soda that was sitting on the floor. I named him Boxes. Boxes was only an outside cat when he escaped. My mom had to clothe him so he wouldn't destroy the furniture. As a result, we did our best to keep him inside. He'd get out every now and then, and we'd find him somewhere in the backyard chasing some kind of bug or lizard. Though he could hardly ever catch one because he had no front claws. That's so sad. Please do not declaw your cats. It is practically torture to them. And it heavily, holy shit. Welcome, Raiders. Hi! I'm so sorry that I didn't notice. Hi, Flopsy. How are you doing? And hello to everybody who came in. Hello. Welcome to Spooky Time. We are right now reading some of the chapters of the Pen Pal series, if you know about it. I'm just practicing some ASMR. I am really new to the 3DO ASMR thing. I have only tasted the mic once, so I am still a beginner. Please be kind. And thank you so much for the follow, Sefex Glacier and Frightened Titan. I hope that you guys enjoy your time here, and remember, you can unfollow me anytime, but the soul is unrefundable. Those fragments of your soul are now mine forever. But Flopsy, how did you go? How did you do? How was your stream? Did you guys have fun? Did you feel any tingles? I hope that you did. And please remember to hydrate, grab a snack, grab a drink, go to the bathroom, Or go sleep if you need to. I really don't mind if you raid and run. Your health is always the most important to me. And for those who do not know me and came in from Rob's stream, hello! I am a ghost of the blanket variety, and I am a part-time illustrator and full-time hunting expert. I usually do art and gaming, but as a goal for our recent Ghostathon, we achieved 3D audio ASMR, which is something that I'm going to start including in my schedule for the time being. I also released a new cover. I worked really hard on it, and I would really appreciate it if you guys saw it, if you took a little peek. But yeah, right now we are in the chapter titled Boxes. We had just started, so you're not too far out. And I hope that you enjoy your stay here. Now, let's continue on with the story. He was pretty evasive, but we'd always catch him and carry him back inside. He'd scramble to look back over my shoulder. I told my mom that it was because he was planning his strategy for next time. Once inside, he'd quickly consent to my wish, and he came to learn that the sound of the can opener might signal. He'd come running whenever he heard it. This conditioning came in handy later, because toward the end of our time in that house, boxes would get out much more often and would run under the house into the crawl space, where neither of us wanted to go because it was cramped and probably crawling with bugs and rodents. Ingeniously, my mom thought to hook the can opener to an extension cord out back and run it right outside the hole that boxes had come through. Eventually, he would emerge with his loud meows, looking excited by the sound and then horrified at how we could run such a cruel ruse on him. A can opener with no tuna made no sense to boxes. The last time he escaped under the house was actually our last day in it. My mom had put the house on the market and we had begun packing our things. We didn't have much, and we stretched the packing out a while. I had already packed up all of my clothes at my mom's request. My mom could tell I was really sad about moving, and I wanted the transition to be smooth for me. And I guess she thought that having my clothes in the box would reinforce the idea that we were moving. But things wouldn't change that much. When boxes got out as we were loading some things into the moving van, my mom cursed because she had already packed the can opener and wasn't sure where it was. I pretended to go look for it so I wouldn't have to go under the house, and my mom, probably completely aware of my little scam, moved one of the panels and called in. She came out with boxes pretty quickly and seemed pretty unnerved. She made me feel even better about getting out of it. My mom made some phone calls while I packed a little more. And then she came into my room and told me that she had spoken to the realtor, and we were going to start moving into the other house that day. She said it like it was excellent news, but I had thought we had more time in the house. She originally said that we weren't moving until the end of next week. It was only Tuesday. What's more, we weren't completely finished packing, but my mom said sometimes it was just easier to replace things than pack them and haul them all over the city. I didn't even get to grab the rest of my box clothes. I asked if I could call Josh to say bye, but she said that we could just call him from our new house. We left in the moving van. I managed to stay in touch with Josh for years, which is surprising since we no longer went to the same school. Our parents weren't close friends, but they knew that we were, and so they would accommodate our desire to see one another by driving us back and forth for sleepovers, sometimes every weekend. For Christmas one year, our parents even pooled their money and got us some really nice walkie-talkies that were advertised to work across a range that extended past the distance between our houses. They also had batteries that could last for days if the walkie-talkie was on but not used. It would only occasionally work well enough that we could talk across the city, but when we stayed over, we'd use them around the house, talking in mock radio speak that we had taken from movies, and they worked great for that. Thanks to our parents, we were still friends when we were 10. One weekend I was staying over at Josh's, and my mom called me to say goodnight. She was still pretty watchful even when she couldn't actually watch me, but I had gotten so used to it that I didn't even notice it. Even if Josh did, she sounded upset. Boxes was missing. This must have been a Saturday night, because I had spent the night at Josh's the previous night, and was going to go home the next day because we had school on Monday. Boxes had been missing since Friday afternoon. I gathered that she had not seen him since returning home after dropping me off. She must have decided to tell me he was missing, because if he didn't come home before I did, then I would be devastated at not only his absence, but how she could have kept this from me. She told me not to worry. He'll come back. He always does. But Boxes didn't come back. 3 weekends later, I stayed at Josh's again. I was still upset about Boxes, but my mom told me there had been many times when pets had disappeared from home for weeks or even months, only to return on their own. She said they always knew where home was and will always try to get back. I was explaining this to Josh when a thought hit me so hard that I interrupted my own sentence to say it out loud. What if Boxes thought of the wrong home? Josh was confused. What? He lives with you. He knows where his home is. But he grew up somewhere else, Josh. He was raised in my old house a couple neighborhoods away. Maybe he still thinks of that place as home, like I do. Oh, I get it. Well, that'd be great. We'll tell my dad tomorrow and he'll take us over there so we can look. No, he won't, man. My mom said that we couldn't ever go back to that place because the new owners wouldn't want to be bothered. She said that she told your mom and dad the same thing. Josh persisted. Okay, then we'll just go out exploring tomorrow and make our way to your old house. No! If we get spotted, your dad will find out, and then so will my mom. We'll have to go there ourselves. We'll have to go there tonight. It didn't take much convincing to get Josh on board, since he was usually the one to come up with ideas like this. But we had never snuck out of this house before. It actually turned out to be incredibly easy. The window in his room opened to the backyard, and he had latched a wooden fence that wasn't locked. After those 2 minor hurdles, we slipped off into the night. Flashlight and walkie-talkies in hand. There were 2 ways to get from Josh's house to my old house. We could walk on the street and make all the turns or go through the woods, which would take about half the time. It would have taken about 2 hours to walk there taking the street, but I suggested we'd go that way anyway. I told him it was because I didn't want to get lost. Josh refused and said that if we were seen, they might recognize him and tell his dad. He threatened to go home if we didn't just take the shortcut, and I accepted it because I didn't want to go by myself. Josh didn't know about the last time I walked through these woods at night. The woods were much less creepy with a friend and a flashlight, and we were making pretty good time. Also, thank you for the Raging Hydrate and Buster Chick, Vico. Give me a second, I need to get some water. There you go. The woods were much less creepy with a friend and a flashlight, and we were making pretty good time. I wasn't entirely sure where we were, but Josh seemed confident enough, and that bolstered my morale. We passed through a particularly thick path of tangled trees when the strap on my walkie-talkie got caught on a branch. Josh had the flashlight, and so I was struggling to get the walkie-talkie free when I heard Josh say, "Hey man, wanna go for a swim?" I looked over to where he was shining the flashlight, though I closed my eyes as I did, because I now knew where we were. I was pointing at the pool float. This was where I had woken up in these woods all those years ago. I felt a lump in my throat and the sting of fresh tears in my eyes as I continued to struggle with the walkie. Frustrated, I yanked on it hard enough to break it free, and I turned and walked to Josh, who had partially laid down on the pool float in a mug sunbathing pose. As I walked toward him, I stumbled and nearly fell onto a large hole that was sitting in the middle of the small clearing. But I regained my balance and stopped right at its edge. It was deep. I was surprised by the size of the hole, and more surprised by the fact that I didn't remember it. I realized it must not have been there that night, because I was in the same spot where I had awoken. I put it out of my mind and turned to Josh. Quit messing around, man. You saw I was stuck over there, and you were just laying here joking around on this float. I punctuated the sentence with a kick to an exposed part of the float. A screeching noise rose from it. Josh smiled and inverted. He suddenly looked terrified and was struggling to get off the float, but he couldn't in a quick manner due to the awkward way he had been laying on it. Each time he would fall back on the float, the screeching would intensify. I wanted to help Josh, but I couldn't move myself any closer. My legs wouldn't cooperate. I hated these woods. I picked up the flashlight that he had thrown in with his trashing and shined in on the float, not knowing what to expect. Finally, Josh got off the float and rushed next to me, looking at where I was shining the light. Suddenly there it was. It was a rat. I started laughing nervously, and we both watched the rat run into the woods, taking the scratches with it. Josh lightly punched me in the arm, the smile slowly returning to his face as we continued walking. We quickened our pace and made it out of the woods faster than we thought we would, and we found ourselves back in my old neighborhood. The last time I had rounded the bend ahead, I had seen my house fully illuminated, and all the memories of what transpired came flooding back. I felt a skipping in my heart as we were finally turning the corner and about to face the full view of my house, remembering last time how incandescent it was, but this time all the lights were off. From a distance, I could see my old climbing tree, and as my mind traced the steps of Casualty backward, I realized that I wouldn't back here this night if the tree hadn't grown. And I was briefly gnawed how the events were like that. As we got closer, I could see that the lawn looked terrible. I couldn't even guess when it had been last mowed. One of the shutters had partially broken loose and was rocking back and forth in the breeze. And overall the house just looked dirty. It was sad to see my old home in such a state of disrepair. Why would Mom care if we bothered the new owners if they cared so little about where they lived? And then I realized there were no new owners. The house was abandoned. It looked simply forsaken. Why would my mom lie about me? Why would my mom lie to me about her house having new people in it? But I thought that this was actually a good thing. It would be easier to look around for boxes if we didn't have to worry about being spotted by the new family. This would make it much quicker. Josh interrupted my thoughts as we walked through the gate and out to the house itself. Your old house sucks, dude. Josh yelled as quietly as he could. Shut up, Josh. You like this is so nicer than your house. Hey, man. Okay. I think boxes is probably under the house. One of us has to go under and look, but the other should stay next to the opening in the case he comes running out. Look, I'll game you for it. Unless you're too scared. Are you serious? There's no way I'm going under there. It's your cat, man. You do it. Unless you're too scared, I said, holding my fist over my upturned palm. Fine. Then we go and shoot. Not on 3. It's rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Not 1, 2, 3. I know how to play the game, Josh. You're the one who always messes up. And it's 2 out of 3. I lost. I would go lose the panel that my mom would always move when she had to crawl under here for boxes. She only had to do it a couple of times since the can opener trick usually worked. But when she had to do it, she hated it. Especially that last time. As I looked into the darkness of the crawl space, I had a greater appreciation why. Before we moved, she said that it was actually better that boxes ran under here, despite how hard it could be to get him out. It was less dangerous than him jumping over the fence and running around the neighborhood. All that was true, but I was still dreading doing this. I grabbed the flashlight on the walkie-talkie and began to crawl in. A powerful smell overtook me. It smelled like death. I turned on my walkie. Josh, are you there? This is Matchman. Come back. Josh, cut it out. There's something running here. What do you mean? It stinks. It smells like something died. Is it boxes? I really hope not. Give me a second. Freya's being a little bit of a brat right now. Yeah? It stinks. It smells like something died. Is it boxes? I really hope not. I set down the walkie and moved the flashlight around as I crawled forward. Looking through the hole from the outside, you could see all the way back with the right lighting. But you had to be inside to see around the support blocks that held the house up. I'd say there was about 40% of the area that you couldn't see unless you were actually in the crawl space. But even inside, I discovered that you could only see directly where the flashlight was pointing. I realized that this would make scouting around the place much more difficult. As I went forward, the smell intensified. The fear was growing in me that Boxes had come here and something had happened to him. I shined the flashlight around, but I couldn't see much of anything. I rubbed my fingers around the support block to pull myself forward, and as I did that, I felt something that made my hand recoil. My heart sank, and I prepared myself emotionally for what I was about to see. I crawled slowly so I could prolong what I knew was coming. And I inched my eyes and the flashlight past the block to see what was on the other side. I staggered back in horror. Jesus Christ! Escaped my trembling mouth. It was a hideous and twisted creature, badly decomposed. Its skin had rotted away. On its face, so the teeth appeared to be enormous, and the smell was unbearable. What is it? Are you okay? Is it Boxes? Reach for the walkie. No, it's not Boxes. Then what the hell is it then? I don't know. Shined the light on it again and looked at it with less fear in my vision. I chuckled. It's a raccoon. Well, keep looking. I'm gonna go into the house to see if he might have made it in there somehow. What? No, Josh, don't go in there. What if Boxes is down here and runs out? I can't. I put the board back. Oh! I looked and saw that he was telling the truth. Why'd you do that? Don't worry, man. You can move it easy. It makes more sense. If Boxes ran out and I miss him, then he'd be gone. If he's down here, then grab him tight and I'll come move the board. And if he's not, then you can move it yourself while I look in the house. Some of his points were good, and I doubt that he'd be able to get in anyway. Okay, but be careful and don't touch anything. There's a bunch of my old clothes still in boxes in my room. Go back in there to see if he crawled in one. And make sure to bring your walkie. Roger that, good buddy. I realized that it would be pitch black in there. The power would have been turned off since no one was paying the bill. And with any luck, he'd be able to see from the streetlights that might cast some light inside. Otherwise, I'm not sure what he'd do. Before too long, I heard footsteps right over my head and felt old dirt raining down on me. Josh, is that you? Shh! Breaker! This is Matcha Man coming from the Big Tangle Foxtrot. The Eagle has landed. What's your 20, Princess Jasmine? Over. Asshole. Matchman, my 20 is in your bathroom looking at your stash of magazines. Looks like you've got a thing for dudes' butts. What's the report on that? Over. I could hear him laughing without the walkie, and I started laughing too. I heard the footsteps fade away a little. He was on his way to my room. Man, it's dark in here. Hey, are you sure you had boxes of clothes in here? I don't really see any. Yeah, there should be a couple boxes in front of the closet. There aren't any boxes in here. Let me check to see if you maybe put the boxes in the closet before you left. I started thinking that maybe my mom had come back and gotten the clothes and just given them away, because I had outgrown a lot of them. But I remember leaving the boxes there. Didn't even have time to close the last one up before we left. While I was waiting for Josh to tell me what he found, I kicked down my leg, which had started falling asleep because of the position I was in, and it hit something. I looked back and saw something really strange. It was a blanket, and all around it were balls. crawled a little closer to it. The blanket smelled moldy and most of the bowls were empty, but one had something that I recognized still in it. Cat food. It was a different kind that we gave to boxes, but I suddenly understood. My mom had set up a little place for boxes to encourage him to come here instead of running around the neighborhood. That made a lot of sense, and it seemed even more likely that boxes would have come back to this place. That's so cool, Mom, I thought. I found your clothes. Oh, cool. Where were the boxes? Like I said, there are no boxes. Your clothes are in your closet. They're hanging up. I felt a chill. This was impossible. I had packed all of my clothes, even though we weren't supposed to move for another 2 weeks when we left. I remember packing them and thinking that it was stupid for me to have to get the clothes out of the box and put them back in. I had packed them, but someone had hung them back up. Why, though? Josh needed to get out of there. That can't be right, Josh. They're supposed to be in boxes. Stop messing around and just come back outside. Don't joke, man. I'm looking at them. We just thought that you left them. Oh, wow. You sure like to look at yourself, don't you? What do you mean? Wolves, man. The wolves are covered in Polaroids of yourself. There are hundreds of them. What you hire someone to... I checked my walkie to see if I had switched it off somehow. It was fine. I could hear footsteps, but I couldn't really exactly tell where Josh was going. I waited for Josh to finish his sentence, thinking that his finger had just slipped the off button. But he didn't continue. He seemed to be stomping around the house, though. I was just about to radio him when he came back. There's someone in the house. His voice was hushed and broken. I could hear that he was on the verge of tears. I wanted to respond, but how loud was his walkie turned out? What if the other person heard it? I said nothing and just waited and listened. What I heard were footsteps, heavy, dragging footsteps, and then a loud thud. Oh God, Josh. He had been found. I was sure of it. This person had found him and was hurting him. I broke out in tears. He was my only friend, next to boxes, and then I realized, what if Josh told him I was under there? What could I possibly do? As I struggled to compose myself, I thankfully heard Josh's voice through the walkie. He's got something, man. It's a big bat. He just threw it on the floor and... Oh God, man. The bat. I think he just moved. I was paralyzed. I wanted to run home. I wanted to save Josh. I wanted to go for help. I wanted so many things, but I just lay there, frozen. As I lay unable to move, my eyes focused on the corner of the house that was right under my room. I moved my flashlight. My breath hitched at what I saw. Animals. Dozens of them. All of them dead. Laying piles all around the perimeter of the crawl space. Could boxes be among these corpses? Was this what the cat food was for? Seeing this broke my shock as I knew I had to get out of there. I scrambled to the board. I pushed it, but it wouldn't budge. I couldn't move it because it was wedged in there and I couldn't get my fingers around it since the edges were outside. I was trapped. God damn you, Josh! I whispered to myself. I could feel Thunder's footsteps above me. The house was shaking. I heard Josh scream. It was matched by another scream that wasn't full of fear. As I continued pushing, I felt the board move. I knew it wasn't me who was moving it. I could hear footsteps above me and in front of me, and shouting and screaming, filling brief silences between the footsteps. I moved back and held my walkie ready to try and defend myself, and the board was thrown to the side and an arm shot and grabbed for me. Let's go, man! Now! It was Josh. Thank God. I scrambled out of the opening holding the flashlight and the walkie. Then we got to the fence. We both jumped it, but Josh's walkie fell, and he reached for it and I told him to forget it. I had to move. Behind us I could hear yelling, though they weren't words, only sounds. And we, perhaps foolishly, ran for the woods to get back to Josh's quicker and be somewhat harder to follow. The whole way through the woods, Josh kept yelling, My picture! He took my picture! I knew the man already had Josh's picture from all those years ago at the ditch. I suppose Josh still thought those mechanical sounds were from a robot. I made it back to Josh's house and back into his room before his parents woke up. I asked him about the big bag and everything else, and he said he couldn't be sure. He kept apologizing about dropping the water at the house. Obviously, there wasn't a big deal. I didn't go to sleep except looking out of the window waiting for him. I wasn't here today, as it was about 3 a.m. already. Told my mom the basics of the story a couple days ago. She broke down and was furious about the danger of things. I asked her why she made all those things up about bothering the new owners to stop me from going. Why did she think the house was so dangerous? She became irate and hysterical, but she answered my question. She grabbed my hand and squeezed it harder than I thought her capable of her, and looked her eyes to mine, whispering as if she was afraid of being overheard. Because I never put any fucking blankets or bowls under the house for boxes. You weren't the only one to find them. I felt dizzy. I understood so much now. I understood why she had looked so uneasy after she brought boxes out from under the house on our last day there. She found more than spiders or a rat's nest that day. I understood why we left almost 2 weeks early. I understood why she tried to stop me from going back. She knew. She knew he made his home under ours, and she kept it from me. I left without saying another word and didn't finish the story for her, but I want to finish it here for you. I got home from Josh's that day. I threw my stuff on the floor and scattered it everywhere. Didn't care. I just wanted to sleep. I woke up around 9 p.m. to the sound of boxes meowing. My heart leapt. He had finally come home. I was a little sick about the fact that I had just waited a day. That if I had just waited a day, none of the previous night's events would have happened, and I'd have boxes anyway. But that didn't matter. He was back. I got off my bed and called for him, looking around to catch a glint of light of his eyes. The crying continued, and I followed it. It was coming from under the bed. I laughed a little, thinking I had just crawled under a house looking for him, and now this was so much better. His meows were being muffled by a shirt, so I flung it aside and smiled, yelling, "Welcome home, boxes!" His cries were coming from my walkie-talkie. Boxes never came home. Ooh, spooky. Outbreak just started, so I'm gonna refill my water, and I'll be right back, everybody. Please continue to enjoy the beautiful, beautiful sounds of the caretakers everywhere at the end of time. I love this album, guys. I am back with water, everybody. And now we can continue on to the next chapter. This one is called Maps. There was a comment in the last post that made me remember an event from my childhood that I always took as odd, but I never considered it to be related to any of these stories. I know now that it is. It's funny how memories work. The details might be all present in your mind, so scattered in disarray. Then a single thought can stitch them back together almost instantly. I never thought of these events as much because I was focused on the wrong details. I went back to my mom's house and went through my old childhood schoolwork looking for something that I think is important. I couldn't find it, but I'll keep looking. Sorry for the length. Most old cities and the neighborhoods in them weren't planned with the thought that the population would begin to grow exponentially and would have to be accommodated. The layout of the roads generally are originally in response to geographical restrictions and the necessity of connecting points of economic importance. Once the connecting roads are established, new businesses and roads are positioned strategically along the existing skeleton, and eventually the paths carved into the earth are immortalized by asphalt, leaving room only for minor modifications. Additions, alterations, but never any dramatic change. My childhood neighborhood must have been old. If straight lines move as the crow flies, then my neighborhood must have been built based on the travels of a snake. The first houses built must have been placed around the lake, and gradually the habitable area increased as new extensions were built off the original path. But these new extensions all ended abruptly at one point or another. There was only one entrance/exit for the entire neighborhood. Many of these extensions were limited by a tributary which both fed and drank from the lake and passed right by what I came to call, and what have called in these stories, the ditch. Many of the original homes had enormous yards, but some of those original plots had been divided, leaving properties with smaller and smaller boundaries. An aerial view of my neighborhood would give one the impression that an enormous squid had once died in the woods, and had some adventuring entrepreneur found the corpse and paved roads over its tentacles, only to withdraw its involvement and leave time, greed, and desperation to divide up the land among prospective homeowners, like an embarrassing attempt at the golden ratio. From my porch you could see the old houses that surrounded the lake, but the house of Mrs. Maggie was my favorite. She was, as best as I can remember, around 80 years old, but despite that, she was one of the friendliest people I had ever met. She had a head of loose white curls, and always wore light dresses with floral patterns. She would talk to me and Josh from the back of her porch when we were swimming in the lake, and she would always invite us for snacks. She said that she was lonely before her, because her husband, Tom, was always away on business, but Josh and I would always decline her invitation, because as nice as Mrs. Mackey was, there was still something a bit odd about her. Every now and then, when we would swim away, she would say, "Chris and John, you're welcome any time." And we could hear her still yelling that when we were walking back into my house. Mrs. Mackey, like any of the older homeowners, had a sprinkler system that was on a timer. Though at some point over the years, her timer must have broken because the sprinklers would have come on at various points during the day, and often even at night all year. Well, it never got cold enough to snow very much. Several times each winter, I would go outside in the morning to see Mrs. Mackey's yard transformed into a surreal Arctic paradise by the frozen water. Every other yard stood sterilized and dry by the biting frost of winter's cold. But right there in the middle of the bleak reminder of the savagery of the season was an oasis of beautiful eyes changing like stalactites from every branch of the tree and every leaf of every bush. As the sun rose, it reflected off of each side of ice, splintered the sun into a rainbow that would only be viewed briefly before it blinded you. Even as a child, I was struck by how beautiful it was. And often Josh and I would go over there to walk on the ice grass and have sword fights with the icicles. I once asked my mom why she left it on like that. Mom seemed to search for the explanation before she said, "Oh, sweetie, Mrs. Maggie is sick a lot, and sometimes when she gets really sick, she gets confused. That's why she messes up yours and Josh's name sometimes. She doesn't mean to, but sometimes she just can't remember. She lives in that big house all by herself, so it's okay if you talk to her when you summon the lake, but when she invites you in, you should keep saying no. Be polite. Their feelings won't get hurt." But she'll be less lonely when her husband comes home, though, right? How long will he be away on business? It seemed like he's always away. Mom seemed to struggle, and I could see that she had become very upset. Finally, she answered, "Honey, Tom's not going to come home. Tom's in heaven. He died years and years ago, and Mrs. Maggie doesn't remember. She gets confused and forgets, but Tom's not ever coming home. If someone went back in with her, she might even think it was Tom, but he's gone, sweetie." I would have only been around 5 or 6 years old when she told me that. Well, I didn't understand it completely. I was so profoundly sad for Mrs. Maggie. I know now that what Mrs. Maggie had was Alzheimer's. She and her husband Tom had 2 sons, Chris and John. The 2 had worked out payment plans with the utility companies and paid for Mrs. Maggie's water and electricity, but they would never visit her. I don't know if something happened between them, or if it was the illness, or if they just lived too far away, but they never came around. I have no idea what they looked like, but there were times when Mrs. Maggie must have thought Josh and I looked like they did when they were children. Or maybe she saw what some part of her mind so desperately wanted her to see, ignoring the images running down her optic nerve, just for a little while, showing her what used to be. I realize only now how lonely she must have been. During the summer after kindergarten, before the events of balloons, Josh and I had taken exploring the woods near my house, as well as the tributary of the lake. We knew that all the woods between our houses were connected, and we thought it would be neat if the lake near my house was somehow connected to the creek around his. So we resolved ourselves to find out. We were going to make maps. The plan was to make 2 separate maps and then combine them. We'd make one map exploring the area around the creek near his house, and make another one following the outflow from my lake. Originally, we were going to make one map, but we realized that wasn't possible since I had started drawing the map of my area so huge that the route from his house wouldn't have been to scale. We kept the map from the lake at my house and the map from the creek at his house, and we would add to each when we stayed the night with each other. For the first couple of weeks, it went really well. We would walk through the woods along the water and pause every couple of minutes to add to the map, and it seemed like the 2 maps would come together any day. We had no equipment needed for the job, not even a compass, but we tried to make do. We had the idea to impale the earth with a stick when we had reached the end of our venture, so that if we came upon the stick from the other direction the next weekend, we would know we had joined the maps. We might have been the world's worst cartographers. Eventually, however, the woods became too thick near the water coming from the lake, and we were unable to proceed further. We lost interest in the whole project for a bit, and reduced our exploration significantly. though not completely, when we started selling smartphones. After I showed my mom all the pictures I had taken home from school and she took away my smartphone machine, our interest in the maps revitalized. We had come up with another plan, although I didn't understand why. My mom had placed what I considered to be extremely severe restrictions on what I could do and where I could go. And I had to check in frequently if I went outside to play with Josh. This meant we couldn't stay in the woods for hours and continue to look for a new path. We thought we could just swim when we got to the cutoff in the woods, but that clearly wouldn't work since the map would get wet. We tried going faster when we were coming from Josh's house, but we eventually ran into the same problem, when we had a brilliant idea. We built a raft. Due to the construction in the neighborhood, there was a large amount of scrap building material that the company would set in the ditch to keep it out of the road, and enough size since they no longer needed it for building. We originally conceived of a formidable ship, complete with a mast and an anchor, but this quickly diminished into something more manageable. We set aside the wood and took several large pieces of styrofoam that were backed with foam board and tied them together with a rope and kite string. We launched our vessel a little downwater from Mrs. Maggie and waited for a whirl to hear as she motioned us to come back her way, but there was no stopping us. The raft worked very well, and while we both behaved and spoke as if the functionality of the raft was a given, I know at least I was a little surprised. We had a fairly long tree branch to use as a paddle, but we found it was easier to simply push against the land under the water than actually use it as intended. When the water became too deep, we'd simply lie on our stomachs and use our hands to paddle the water, which still worked, albeit less well. The first time we'd had to resort to that method of propulsion, I remember thinking that was from far above it must have looked like a colossally fat man with tiny arms was out for a swim. It actually took us several trips to get the rafting to the impassable patch of woods that marked the farthest we had made it. After we had come up with the idea of marking the ground with a stick, we had taken to running through the woods until we got to the stick and then, as carefully and precisely as we knew how, charting our course. This meant that the impasse was actually quite a bit away. So to sail from around my house all the way to the blockade in the woods was taking longer than expected. We'd sail for a bit and then dock the raft, and then next time we'd run through the woods to the raft and go a little farther. We continued this well on to the first grade. Josh and I were assigned to different groups that year, so since we didn't really see each other during the school day, our parents were more willing to let us hang out a weekend each week. What's more, Josh's dad had taken on a lengthy construction job that required him to walk all over the weekends. His mother was on call, so this meant that Josh would stay at my house most every weekend for weeks on end. We should have been making excellent progress, but when we finally made it to the impasse and had the opportunity to explore it past it, we couldn't find a place to dock the raft. The woods were simply too thick, and the water had eroded the land to the point that there was nearly a 2-foot rise of earth over the tributary, which exposed the twisted and damp roots of the trees above. We'd have to turn back every time and leave the raft at the same thick of trees that prompted us to build it in the first place. Even worse, winter had arrived, so we couldn't justify leaving the house in our swimsuits. We were going nowhere. We always had to come home before we could gain much ground. On a Saturday, around 7 p.m., Josh and I were playing when one of my mom's coworkers knocked on our door. Her name was Samantha, and I remember her well now because I would propose to her a couple of years later when I was visiting my mom at work. My mom said that she had to go to work to fix a problem that had arisen, and that she'd be back in about 2 hours. Her car was being repaired, so she'd have to ride with Samantha. But I gathered that the problem was Samantha's fault. And discussing it in the car was why it would only take 2 hours. She said that under no circumstances we were to leave the house or open the door for anyone, and she was in the middle of explaining that she would call every hour when she got there to check in. But she ended the statement prematurely when she remembered that her phone had been turned off for delinquent payments. This was why Samantha had just come by unannounced. She looked me dead in the eye as she was closing the door and said, "Stay put." This was our chance. We watched her drive down the serpentine road toward the exit, and as soon as the car rounded the last visible bend, we ran back to my room. I dumped my backpack out while Josh grabbed the map. Hey, do you have a flashlight? Josh chimed. No, but we'll be back way before dark. I was thinking just in case we should have one. My mom has one, but I don't know where she keeps it. Wait. I ran into my closet and pulled the box down from the top shelf. You have a flashlight in there? Josh asked. Not exactly. I opened the box and revealed 3 Roman candles that I had taken from the pile my mother had amassed for the 4th of July that past summer, along with a lighter that I had managed to take from her some months before. This would ensure that we at least had some light if we needed it. This was a little bit before I had given an opportunity to be afraid of the woods at night. So it wasn't fear that motivated our search for a light source, only practicality. We threw it all in the backpack and bolted out the back door, making sure it to close it so boxes wouldn't get out. We had 1 hour and 50 minutes. We ran through the woods as fast as we could and made it to the raft in about 15 minutes. We had our bathing suits on under our clothes, so we stripped off our shirts and shorts and let them in 2 separate piles about 4 feet from the edge of the water. We untied the raft from the tree, grabbed our branch paddles, and cast off. We tried to move rapidly to each point beyond the contents of our ever-expanding map, as we didn't have time to waste seeing old sights. We knew that we were slower in the raft than on land, and that we would be in the raft for quite a while after the cutoff, since the woods were too thick to walk through, and there wasn't a place to dock. This meant that we'd have to ride the raft back to the original docking site, even if we find a new place to dock it further ahead. After we passed the last charted part of our map, the water began to get really deep, and eventually we could no longer touch the bottom with our tree branches, so we lay on our stomachs and paddled with our hands. It was getting darker, and as a result, it was becoming harder to distinguish the trees from one another, and we were both becoming slightly unnerved. In the interest of making good time, we were paddling fast with our arms, but this caused a lot of noise as our hands repeatedly confronted and then broke through the water surface tension. During this period, we could both hear the crunching of dead leaves and the snapping of falling sticks in the wood on our right. As we would slow our pace and quiet our actions, the rustling in the woods would cease, and we began to wonder if it was really ever there at all. We didn't know what kinds of animals resided this far into the woods, but we did know that we didn't wish to find out. As Josh examined the map that I was illuminating with the lighter, we were suddenly confronted with the fact that the sounds were not imagined. Rapidly and rhythmically we heard crunch, snap, crunch. It seemed to be moving slightly away from us, pushing through the woods just beyond our map. It had become too dark to see. We had missed just how long the sun would linger. Nervously, I called out, "Hello?" There was a brief moment of breathless tension as we lay static in the water, the silence suddenly broken by laughter. "Hello?" Josh cackled. "Hello, monster in the woods. I know you're sneaking around, but maybe you'll answer my hello. Hello." I realized how stupid it was. Whatever animal it was, it wouldn't respond. I didn't even realize I'd said that until afterwards, but if anything was actually there, I obviously wouldn't get a reply. Just continued, "Hello," in a high falsetto. "Hello," I countered, with as deep a baritone as I could manage. "Hello, mate. Hello, people. Hello." We continued mocking each other, and we were in the process of turning the raft around to head back when we heard, "Hello." It was whispered and forced, as if it were powered by the last breath of a pair of deflating lungs. But it didn't sound sickly. It had come from the spot just off the map, which now sat behind us since we had turned the raft around. I slowly shifted on the raft and faced the direction of the sound as I fumbled with the Roman candle. I wanted to see. "What are you doing?" Josh hissed. I had already lit it. As the sparking fuse sunk into the wrapper, I held it toward the sky. I'd never actually shot one of these myself, and I thought to just use one like the flare in the movies. A glowing green orb rocketed out towards the stars and then quickly extinguished. I lowered my arm more toward the horizon. I could remember that there were several colors, but I couldn't remember how many times of these fired before being depleted. A second ball of red light burst out and fizzled above the trees, but I still saw nothing. Just let go, man! Josh pressed as he turned to face the direction back home and began paddling desperately. Just one more. Lowering my arm directly at the woods in front of me, another red ball of fire was launched from the tube. It traveled straight ahead until it collided with the tree, briefly exploding the light in a much greater diameter. Still nothing. I dropped the firework in the water and watched as one more struggling fireball burst free, only to quickly die, suffocated by the water. As we began paddling in the direction toward my house, we heard a loud, unconcealed rustling in the woods. The breaking of branches and the trampling of falling leaves overpowered by the sound of our splashing. He was running. In our panic, we jostled the raft too violently, and I felt one of the ropes under my chest loosen. Josh, be careful! But it was too late. Our raft was breaking. Before too long, it had completely fallen apart. We each held onto a separate piece of styrofoam, but the pieces weren't big enough to keep us completely afloat, and our legs dangled beneath us in the winter water. Josh, quick! I yelled as I pointed at the water right next to him. He scrambled, but it was too cold to move quickly, and he watched as the map floated away. Like, cool, man. Let's get out of the water. We approached the shore, but each time we attempted to pull ourselves up, we'd hear the frantic rustling and thundering towards us from the woods just above. Eventually, we were too cold and weak to even try anymore. Steadily, we kicked our legs and found ourselves nearing the dockside. We toppled off the dray and tried to pull it on land, but Josh's beast leaped away and floated in the direction of the lake. We took off our swimsuits and were desperate to get into dry clothes to shield us from the biting chill of the air. I slipped my shorts, but there was something wrong. I turned to Josh. Where's my shirt, man? He shrugged and suggested maybe he got knocked into the water and floated into the lake. No problem, Makodanshi. Thank you so much for coming in. I told Josh to just go back to my house and to say that we were playing hide and seek if my mom was home. I had to try and find my shirt. I ran behind the houses and peered out over the water and scouted along the shoreline. It occurred to me that with any luck, maybe I could find the map too. I was moving pretty fast because I needed to get home, and was about to give up when my concentration was interrupted by a sound coming from just behind me. Hello. I whisked around. It was Mrs. Maggie. I had never seen her at night before, and in the poor light she looked exceedingly frail. The usual warmth that wrapped her manner seemed to have been snuffed out by the chill. I couldn't remember ever seeing her without a smile, and so her face looked strange. Hello, Mrs. Maggie. Oh, hi, Chris. The warmth and smile had returned to her, even if her memories had not. I couldn't see it was you in the dark here. Jokingly, I asked her if she was going to invite me in for a snack, but she said maybe another time. I was too busy looking for my map on the shirt to really engage her, but she sounded happy, so I didn't feel bad. She said a couple other things, but I was too distracted to pay attention. I said goodnight and ran down her driveway toward my house. Behind me I could hear her walking across the frozen yard, but I couldn't turn around to wave. I had to get home. I made it home a couple of minutes before my mom did, and by the time she came in, Josh and I had already changed clothes and warmed up. I'd gotten away with it, even though we'd lost the map. Couldn't find it? No, but I saw Mrs. Maggie. She called me Chris again. I'm telling you, dude, but just be glad you've never seen her at night. We both laughed, and he asked me if she invited me for a snack, joking that the snacks must be terrible since she couldn't even give them away. I told him that she didn't, and he was surprised. Now that I had time to think about it, so was I. Literally every time we had seen her, she had invited us in for snacks. And here I had, albeit sarcastically, invited myself, and she said no. It's Josh. talk more about Mrs. Maggie, I suddenly realized that the lighter might still be in my pocket and that it would be disastrous for my mom to find. I showed up the floor and patted my pockets. I felt something, but it wasn't the lighter. From my back pocket, I slid out a folded piece of paper and my heart leapt. A map? I thought. But I watched it float away. As I unfolded the paper, my stomach turned as I tried to understand what I was seeing. Written on the paper inside was a large oval where two stick figures were holding hands. One was much bigger than the other, but neither had faces. The paper was torn apart, so a part of it was missing, and there was a number written near the top right. It was either 15 or 16. I nervously handed Josh the paper and asked him if he had put it in my pocket at some point, but he scoffed at the idea and asked why I was so upset. I pointed towards this smallest stick figure and what was written next to it. It was my initials. I shook it off and told Josh the rest of the conversation between Mrs. Maggie and I. I had always attributed the odd exchange to her being sick until revisiting the events in my mind all those years later. As I think about it now, the feeling of profound sadness for Mrs. Maggie returns, but it's augmented by a full feeling of despair when I think about why she said maybe another time. I knew what she had said, but I didn't understand what it meant. I didn't understand that her words had meant weeks later when I watched Men in Strange Orange Suits Strange orange biohazard suits carry what I thought were black bags full of garbage out of her house, or why the whole neighborhood smelled like that day. I still didn't understand when they condemned the house and boarded it up a little while before we moved, but I understand now. I understand why her last words to me were so important, even if neither she or I realized it at that time. Mrs. Maggie had told me that night that Tom had come home, but I know who had really moved in, just as I know why I never saw her body brought out on a stretcher. The bags were filled with garbage. And this will be the last story for tonight, actually, since it is already midnight for me. And while I know that I did technically start stream a little bit later, my vocal cords are really feeling a little bit sore. So I believe for my health and for your guys' sake, I will be ending stream here. I hope that you guys enjoyed my first 3DO ASMR, even if it was a little bit scuffed towards the beginning. But the story with boxes was definitely my favorite. Yeah, this is an entire series. I don't know how long it is, but it was actually published as a book. I already have read some of the other parts, but it was just really interesting rereading it again, and I really loved it. Thank you again, Flopsy, for rating in. I'm really glad that you were able to come in here, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this night. I will be off on the 24th due to the fact that I am celebrating Christmas with my family. Here in Colombia, we celebrate Christmas on the 24th rather than on the 25th. So that's why I will be taking the 24th off, and I'll be seeing you guys on the 25th to do some art and some chatting. I don't really know. Oh shit, I just swallowed some stuff. Some saliva. But I'll be uploading my schedule for next week if I do not take a break. Now, let's see who I can throw you guys into. Let's see. I'm trying not to rate up the Scry too much because I rated Scry a ton. Let's see. Smeet and Seraph is doing Lego handcam stream right now. I believe that is really cozy and nice. And if you got spooked by the stories we got today, it will be a good time to just chill and watch them build their Legos. I really love Lego building. I bought my dad a Lego set for Christmas, and my dad is a little bit of a snoop, so I had to hide it at my grandparents' house. But I think that he will like it. This is my raid message and our raid message for subs. I hope that you guys enjoyed this format, and I hope that you got a little bit spooked. I worked really hard on creating this specific layout for spooky stories, and I hope that you guys liked it, because it is very spooky, very nice and spooky. I will be uploading a new speed paint actually tomorrow, maybe even today, because it's scheduled to release today. So if you want to see that as it releases, feel free to check out my main YouTube, which is the Blanket Ghost. And if you want to see my bots or my past ASMR streams, feel free to check out the Blanketer Bots channel, where I upload all of my old bots. It's still a little bit pushback, but I am slowly getting all of my old videos there. I am Blanketer Ghost on all of my socials, and my commissions are open. I actually have a Christmas sale. If you want to snag something from my pigeon, feel free to go there. I'll see you guys on the 25th, and I hope you have happy holidays. Yes, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, blessed you, Happy Hanukkah to everyone. Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye.